I was reading earlier on one of the websites, they had a WWE, must have been a press release, coming out of WrestleMania talking about some other record that they had set, and I don't know, some sort of business announcement about how well they did and all the money they generated for WrestleMania this year. And it's always jarring to read something like that, and then immediately after that, you have a day like today, which happens almost every year. There's always this Black Friday period in WWE, this dark cloud that hangs over, and you just wait for the announcements of who they have cut, who has WWE released from their contract. And sometimes it's just this mass wave of releases. Sometimes it's only a handful of names. Many times, though, they will just release people en masse. And you understand that, no job is guaranteed, and they really are the ones with all the power. You sign these contracts for X number of years. And I always think back to the Good Brothers many years ago when they had re-signed with WWE these big money contracts, 5-year deals. And then just a matter of months later, the company cut them. Because at the end of the day, when you sign these contracts, really what you're doing is you're making a guarantee. You're making a promise to the company that, okay, I will be under contract to you for X amount of time and I can't go anywhere. But of course, when the shoe's on the other foot, the company can let you go at any moment. It doesn't matter if you have a 5-year contract, a 10-year contract, unless you have a no-cut contract, which I'm willing to bet most talent in WWE do not have, but maybe the very tippy-top talents. The reality is that your job is never safe. And especially if you are someone who is very low on the totem pole in WWE. And I made the comment not even a few weeks ago, last week, 2 weeks ago, somebody had sent in a question and they had asked me, who do I think is going to get, released from WWE, with the post-WrestleMania cuts? And I said, I don't want to name any names because that's just kind of gross. But also, I would just say that if you are someone who is not currently being utilized by the company, if you're sitting in the back, if you're flying out to whatever city that Raw or SmackDown is, and you're not actively being used, and you're sitting backstage or in catering, you want to, you're hoping to be on the show, you're never on the show. To me, those are the people that should always be worried. Those are the people that are always on the bubble because you're expendable. You're not actively on the show. You're not being allowed to contribute in any meaningful way. So, of course, low-hanging fruit, if people have to get cut, I would be worried if I was someone like that. Although occasionally you will also find talents that are on television who get cut anyway. And so as I'm looking at the list of names that we now have, and I'm going to get into here momentarily, there are names on this list that lost their jobs today in WWE and NXT that don't shock me. It's all sad, it's all shitty. No matter who you are, no matter who you like or don't like, no matter who you think should or should not be on TV, it's always a shitty situation when somebody loses their job. And I would not advocate for that. And anybody who advocates for that is an asshole. So let me just say that first and foremost. But there are times where I will look at these lists and I will see certain names on there. And I just scratch my head. I am baffled by some of the names that will pop up on these lists. And for all the times I've said, well, if you're not really being utilized, I would be worried. There are names on this list that were being used and still lost their job today in WWE. And it has me sitting here wondering what the hell is going on here? How are these decisions being made? To my count, 24 names have gotten their release or have left, have departed WWE as of today. 24. And yet Def Rebel remains employed. Think about that. But it was Fightful, Bodyslam.net, really all the main sites now are reporting on it, but they were the ones that first started breaking the news about talent releases in WWE. And this is what we know so far. Now, this can and unfortunately probably will evolve because there's no indication that this is it, that there won't be any more releases. I hope not, but it is still possible there could be more. These are the people that are on the list. Now, I will say we don't know for sure if all of these names were necessarily released. by WWE. It could be a case where certain contracts were allowed to expire. I'm going to guess, based upon how many names are on this list and the fact they all happened at the same time, most, if not all of these, are probably releases from the company. But two names on that list are Aleister Black and Zelina Vega. Two names that were part of the SmackDown roster. They were not on SmackDown tonight, and the reason they were not on SmackDown tonight is because they are no longer working for WWE. This is the same Aleister Black who has pinfall wins in the last couple of months on television over Randy Orton, who just main evented WrestleMania, by the way, and Sami Zayn, who went into WrestleMania as the United States champion. The same Aleister Black who, if the latest reports are to be believed, the original idea was for him to be the one on the phone with Randy Orton, or the voice in the head of Randy Orton. And there was going to be a story that would have played out at WrestleMania involving Aleister Black and Randy Orton, potentially even a match at WrestleMania between the two of them. That Aleister Black, the one that they only first brought back to the company 1 year ago. And also his wife, Zelina Vega, gone from the company. The reason I say that most of these are probably releases, but we can't say for sure that all of them are, I'm wondering, and again, maybe not, maybe this is not the way that it worked out, but I'm looking at this and I'm wondering if maybe Zelina Vega got the call to be released, and who's to say that Aleister Black was like, if she's gone, I'm gone, right? We just don't know. So I hesitate to say that he was released. We don't know. We know that she was because she's already commented on this. Zelina Vega, not very happy about the fact that Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful was the first one to make public her name as one of the releases. She claimed on her Twitch stream that she got a phone call not from Paul Levesque or anybody specifically WWE, but she actually got a phone call from TKO. Normally when she gets these calls in the past, it'll come from Stanford, it'll come from a WWE number. Evidently, in this case, she claims that she got a call from TKO, whatever that means. I don't know if it said TKO on her caller ID. I don't know. But she says she got the call directly from TKO. So there's going to be a whole conversation around who's responsible for this, who's calling the shots. When it comes to this list of talents that have been released, is this a Paul Levesque thing? Is this a Nick Khan thing? Is this a TKO thing? Oh, she got a phone call from TKO. This is now the narrative online. We can't blame Triple H and WWE. This is coming from TKO. Let me explain something to you. I'm not in the room. You are not in the room. None of us are in the room when these names are chosen and when these decisions are made. So I cannot sit here and tell you with 100% certainty this is the case, but I will tell you with 99% certainty. People like Ari Emanuel and Mark Shapiro are not sitting around in a room with a list of all the WWE talents in front of them going, you know what? Aleister Black and Zelina Vega and this person and that person, well, let's cut this person. We'll keep this guy, but we'll let this woman go. That's not how this works. That's not how this works. So the idea that TKO is making the decision on who to release is preposterous to me. Now, the decision that, okay, certain cuts need to be made for budgetary reasons, right? You have a number, you can't go past this number, so you got to... That I can believe. That's exactly what's going on here. That I can believe. But as far as who is making the decision on who goes and who stays, you cannot say that Paul Levesque and people like that have no responsibility in this, because it is impossible for me to conceive that these decisions are being made 100% independent of him. He, the chief content officer, who is responsible for trying to figure out week to week which talents are going to be utilized on television. Which talents are we going to have in this storyline or that storyline? And if you believe that they're mapping stories out weeks or months in advance, which I'm not so sure that's the case watching these fucking shows, it is impossible to conceive that they have absolutely no involvement in this process whatsoever. He is still in a position to be picking the names of the people who are going to be cut, even if he's not the one making the phone call at the end of the day. So I'm sure more information will come out about the who, what, where, when, and why in the days to come. But I already see this narrative forming that because Zelina Vega made a comment about TKO on her Twitch stream, this is all TKO, and it's not this person's fault, it's not that person's fault. It's a collaboration. And there is nobody sitting in the offices of TKO making these specific decisions on which talents are being cut. That is ridiculous. I mean, stop yourself for a second and think about that. Use your fucking brain, okay? But she says she got the call at 5:09 p.m. this afternoon that she was being released. And she was very upset that Sean Ross Sapp beat her to the punch before she had the opportunity to go out and make the announcement herself. Now, this was 5:09 p.m., she claimed. I think Sean got the announcement up. It was 8 o'clock or after 8 o'clock. All I'll say is this. I don't know if she has some personal beef with him. I think I saw him make a comment that she already didn't like him, so maybe she already doesn't like the guy. I don't know. He's in a position, in this case, where he is reporting information on people that have been released by the company. It is not his job to wait and sit on information that he may have in the event that every single one of these 24 talents so far that got released may want to go ahead and make an announcement on their own. Put a video out, put a tweet out. It's not how this works. But she's also, I'm sure, very upset, which is understandable, very emotional about it. But again, I already see the piling on and, how could he do something like that? In this case, he didn't do anything that you wouldn't expect someone in his position to do. And that's what I'll say about that for now. Now, Aleister Black and Zelina Vega, they were doing stuff on television. They were involved in like the Randy Orton stuff, and they were in the background of certain backstage segments. And look, a lot of the time that doesn't lead to anything. It's something, it gets people's jollies going. Oh my God, look who's in the background. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything, okay? 9 times out of 10, when Triple H does that, it means nothing. Maxine Dupree has been seen in the background on Raw in recent weeks, I think with the Vision. Does that mean that she's going to join the Vision? She hasn't even been on television. So I wouldn't get too excited about that sort of stuff. But nonetheless, there they were in the background here, in the background there, in the background there. Sami Zayn, they would show up and talk to Sami Zayn. Randy Orton, they would show up and talk about Randy Orton. And I just find it hard to believe, again, if this was their decision to let him go, that you couldn't find something for this man to do on this show when you absolutely could have. I mean, you could say that about different people on this list. He was one of the more surprising names, not the most surprising. The most surprising name on this list, and the one that when I saw it, I thought that it was someone who was trolling. I said, surely this can't be true. But it is Kairi Sane. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, Kairi Sane is someone who was being, prepped to challenge for the world championship in the women's division or anything like that. No, but she has been involved in a very specific story now for months on Monday Night Raw. And the pairing with Asuka, the Kabuki Warriors, but the story that they have been telling where she has just been verbally and psychologically abused and manipulated by this woman, and they want you to feel sympathy for Kairi. Every time that, you hear Asuka shout Kairi's name and she would slink away looking all terrified. And of late, Io Sky has been roped into this story because Io Sky is trying to convince Kairi, you don't need to be associating with her anymore. You don't need her. She treats you like dog shit. And it all seemed to be building to this big moment at WrestleMania. We might get a match at WrestleMania between Io Sky and Asuka. It's almost like custody of Kairi, right? But she was the central, she was the crown jewel. She was the focal point of this story. And then we got no WrestleMania match, which now makes me wonder if, how early did they know they were going to be cutting this woman? And maybe that had something to do with why we ended up not getting that match at WrestleMania. I wouldn't be surprised. But it seemed like that was the direction that we were heading in. And even if they were to do the match at Backlash, we would get Io and Asuka. That's great. Well, the story that you have been preparing people for, the story that you have been telling people is out the fucking window now. So I would love to know, what is the logic behind a decision like this? Do you mean to tell me that Kairi Sane was making so much money that she had to be cut? That she had one of the more expensive contracts on the books and had to be unloaded? She was in the middle of an important story on that show. and we never got the payoff to it. This is a company that loves to talk about storytelling and loves to talk about your characters and building stories. And this has been playing out for so long, and now we will never get the payoff to it. The payoff was Kairi comes to her senses and stands up to Asuka. And instead, Kairi Sane got fired today. And she's gone. And Asuka now is all by herself. And whatever they do now on Monday Night Raw with Asuka and Io, and look, I hope they have a great match if they ever actually put these two women in the ring. But whatever story they tell now, the story is dead. Dead. So they expect you to sort of invest in these characters and invest in these stories that they're telling. And sometimes the stories are good, sometimes the stories are shit. But then something like this happens, and they kind of like, they throw a monkey wrench into the entire thing, and you just see her going, why have I bothered? Why invest your time in any of this stuff if this is the sort of thing that's going to happen? Like, I am completely puzzled by that cut. I don't understand it. Again, I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you that she was the most important person on that show. She wasn't. But she was an important part of the show. I don't understand it. I don't understand the logic that goes into something like that. Because there are going to be names on this list here that I read to you, and you're not even going to know who some of these people are. Some of them are NXT names. Some of them may be talents that, they were trying with, and they just came to the realization that this person just isn't advancing quick enough. And look, that's understandable. Not everybody who is brought into the Performance Center or debuts in NXT is going to make it. But in a situation like this, I have absolutely no idea what is going through their fucking brains when they let some of these people go. How the fuck do you get rid of Kairi Sane in the middle of this? Giulia lost her United States Championship tonight on SmackDown. I'd be very worried right now if I were her. That's all I was thinking of when she lost to Tiffany Stratton tonight. Why did she lose that championship tonight? Not only that, but they were clearly teasing a split or at least some tensions between her and Kiana James. So clearly there's a split on the way. Or maybe there won't be. That's assuming Giulia is even around. I hate to even think like that, but you can't tell me that you weren't thinking the same thing when that match was over. That's why I don't think these cuts are necessarily done yet. The entire Wyatt 6 faction is gone from SmackDown. So not one member, not two members. Every single member of the Wyatt 6 is gone. Bo Dallas, or Uncle Howdy, whatever you want to call him, he's gone. Eric Rowan is gone. Dexter Lumis is gone. Joe Gacy is gone. Nikki Cross is gone. And so now it makes a lot of sense why they just lost in the way that they did, in a very anticlimactic way, to the MFTs on SmackDown last week. We had to sit here for the last 6 months, it felt like 6 years, and watch the MFTs and the Wyatt 6 feud mostly over a fucking lantern. Now, I know you could talk about this. It's the significance of the lantern. The lantern, it was Bray's lantern. It's the significance of it. It was a fucking lantern. The story was shit. And they dragged this thing out for months to where I thought they were going to put that on the WrestleMania card. Thankfully, they didn't. So again, let's not sit here and pretend that what they were doing with the Wyatts was any good. It wasn't. Now, they could have been doing other things with the Wyatt 6 instead of dragging this thing out for so long. Absolutely. That whole storyline, that whole feud did nothing for either group. It actually made the Wyatts, I think, less over than they were at the beginning of the whole thing. But the reality is this. The Wyatt 6 always was going to have a shelf life of a certain amount of time. I never looked at that as a sustainable gimmick in the long haul. I think it was cool the way that Bo was brought back and was allowed to pay tribute to his brother and continue his legacy and be able to carry on with some of the characters that he, had created and thought about in his head. And I think he paid great tribute to him. And if you remember when they made their debut on Raw, remember when they massacred the entire roster? And I know some people were turned off by that. They thought the whole thing was ridiculous. But most people, I think, were pretty excited about the way that they did it and said, man, what a fucking debut this is. It was certainly memorable. It was a hell of a debut. And then the problem becomes, how do you follow up something like that? They massacred the entire roster. Chad Gable was laying there on the floor. He looked like he was shot in the head. Everybody, I mean, blood on the walls. It was like something out of a horror movie. But you look at that and you go, how do you continue on with something like that without just, you had all these guys in this group. It's almost like a supernatural force. And that's the problem with a gimmick like this, is that where do you go next? There weren't a lot of great places to go with it if you wanted to kind of keep that aspect of it up. Or you can humanize them and go in a totally different direction. And we could learn more about each individual, character in the group. And maybe some of them even branch off a little bit and start doing some single stuff. And they don't just do group stuff. They don't just do, 6-man tags or whatever. There were other ways to go about utilizing the Wyatt Six. And they chose to go in the most basic, kind of boring, paint-by-numbers, vanilla way that they could. They would come out. They were an entrance. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but that's what they ended up being. They were an entrance. And then the bell rang, and they would have matches from time to time. Not very often, because they're an attraction, so you really shouldn't have them on TV every week. But when they were actually using them, what were they doing on the show that was exciting? What were they doing on the show that was interesting? We had these cut-ins with the VHS-style vignettes. And after a while, they all sort of blend together, right? They weren't really doing much at that point to think outside the box. It was the same basic bullshit every single week. And then the MFTs came along. And at that point, I mean, it was just death all around. It was like they would come on my television screen and I would just try to do something else because I had absolutely no interest in seeing these people working together on this show. And it soured me. It soured me on all of them. It really did. And so you look at it and you go, okay, what is the end game for this group? Like for Uncle Howdy, where do you go from here? Uncle Howdy is not wrestling Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. Joe Gacy is a talented guy. He had a chance to do a few different things in NXT. Remember the Schism? He was doing some other stuff down there and was given the chance to start cutting promos and stuff. Like there was something there with him. But in the Wyatt Six, he was just a background player, barely ever had the chance to speak. He was just a guy. Dexter Lumis, who never spoke. That was his whole gimmick. That sounds like death. Just another guy. Eric Rowan they brought back. Remember when Rowan had that cameo on that AEW pre-show match? And everybody was raving about him. He looked great in that match. And so when he was brought back to WWE, he's like, okay, you know what? That's kind of cool. They're giving him another chance. There's something there with him. He's not carrying around the dumb spider in the cage. Let's see what they do with him this time. They did nothing. They did nothing. They were an entrance. They didn't know what else to do with them. So it kind of feels like it was only a matter of time before we got here. But I look at like Nikki Cross. What the hell happened to Nikki Cross? She was part of this group. Do you remember the last time you saw Nikki Cross in a match on television? I bet you don't. If I asked you who was the last person that Nikki Cross was in the ring with in a singles match on television, and I put a gun to your head and I said, give me the answer in 10 seconds, you'd be fucking dead. You couldn't tell me. This woman hasn't worked a match on television in 2 years. To my knowledge, she wasn't injured. They basically put her on ice for 2 years. This woman is a wrestler. Instead, she came out in the funny mask and she would just be in the background. And every now and then she would do a crossbody onto somebody on the floor. That was what she was being paid to do. She wasn't actually being used in the ring anymore. Maybe now she'll actually go out there and she'll have this big resurgence on the independent scene. I think that would be great to see. It would be nice to get her back in the ring and have her start wrestling again. But this is what I mean. It's like, I don't know what the end goal was for this group. Just never made any sense to me, the way they were being used. But the entire group now, the entire faction, gone from WWE. The tag team division on SmackDown fucking sucks. Okay? We have had the MFTs and the Wyatts doing some tag team stuff. And who are the tag team champions right now? Holy shit, I just forgot who the tag team champions are on this show. Is it the MFTs? I think the MFTs are the tag team champions. No, Damian Priest and R-Truth. Okay, so there you go. I swear to you. I wasn't putting on an act there. I, for the moment, forgot who the fuck the tag team champions were. Damian Priest and R-Truth, okay? The tag team, that tells you everything you need to know. The tag team division on SmackDown sucks. And so you have the Motor City Machine Guns. They were part of that tag team division on SmackDown. They were doing nothing on the show. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. Every now and then they would kind of dust them off to do something. The last thing we saw them doing on the show, they were with Johnny Gargano trying to convince him to not lay on the crate. This was the compelling television that they came up with for these guys. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, two very talented guys. The problem is, right out of the gate when they got on SmackDown, they made them tag team champions within the first 2 weeks. After that, it was all downhill. Where do you go from there? Right? They lost the titles not long after that, and that was it. They never got back up to that level. They were part of, I think, a couple of memorable TLC matches on SmackDown, even one, I think, a year ago, right? Weren't they part? I think they might have been part of that match. But beyond that, I couldn't tell you a whole hell of a lot about what these two guys did. They always felt like they were on the bubble to me. And part of the problem also was that they never really got over, if we're being honest. We would see them on the show, and it was painful sometimes. They'd be out there, and it was like pulling teeth to try to get a reaction from the audience. And yeah, you could put some of that maybe on WWE in terms of the way that they were being booked and utilized on the show, but you can't put it all on WWE. Some of it goes on the talent. And the reality is they just did not get over at a high level on SmackDown. That put them in a very vulnerable position where today they were on the cut list. And so the Motor City Machine Guns no longer in WWE. Alba Fire, who has been playing one of Chelsea Green's secret Hervis agents, is gone. She posted on X, KAAAIRRRRIII would batter Alba Fire, just saying. KAAAIRRRRIII, of course, is the persona that she was playing in NXT UK. And I believe she got a name change. When did she get the name change? Because I thought she was KAAAIRRRRIII in NXT UK, unless they changed her name there. But basically, she's ready to get back out there and be KAAAIRRRRIII and say fuck you to Alba Fire. And I think she's going to do just fine for her. I think a lot of people on this list, frankly, are going to end up doing very well for themselves, and land somewhere if they want to sign a contract. If they don't want to, I think they'll do well on the indies. She's one of those people. But again, she wasn't really being used in a meaningful way. She was there to wheel Chelsea Green out in her wheelchair. That's it. That's it. This one, it felt like it was only a matter of time. Zoe Stark. Zoe Stark is a name that we have not heard in a very long time because Zoe Stark suffered a horrific knee injury on Raw in May of last year. I mean, I think back to that injury and the way her leg, oh God, it was awful. And the scream, I could hear her scream in my head. So it was a terrible, terrible injury. She tore her ACL, her MCL, her meniscus, and she was on the road to recovery. She had surgery. She went through grueling rehab, and we hadn't really heard any updates on her in quite some time. I was kind of following her social media on Instagram from time to time, and she seems, to be doing a lot better. And I had actually just mentioned her not that long ago, and it felt like she might be, about ready to come back very soon. And I was thinking, well, they have the Women's Intercontinental title, they have the Women's United States Championship, and I could see her, being plugged into one of those divisions, and she could be a solid addition there, Well, it was wishful thinking. That won't be happening, though, because she has been released by WWE. And I was not aware of the fact that apparently just recently she was cleared to return, because you hear the name Zoe Stark and she was let go. It's like, well, that's pretty fucking shitty. Woman is still out recovering from this horrendous injury, hoping to make a comeback, and you let her go. Apparently she was medically cleared. I don't know how recently, but sometime recently she was medically cleared to return, and I guess was just waiting to find out how they were going to bring her back into creative on television. To me, this is almost shittier. This is almost worse than if they would have just let her go in the middle of her rehabbing from that injury, because she went through all of this grueling rehab and recovery, and she made it, and she got medically cleared, and I'm sure in her head she's all excited, man. She's ready to come back. She's ready to jump back in that ring and contribute and get another chance, and then she has it taken away from her. Because that injury, that has to fuck with your head. That injury, I'm sure, was just devastating to her on so many levels. And so imagine working yourself back up to a place where now you are medically cleared and ready to come back, and they fire you. To me, that's even worse. Now, she already posted on social media as well. She said, "Thank you, WWE. You made a young girl's dream come true. You could not have been better and more supportive during my healing, and I will forever be grateful. Thank you to all the girls in the back, the producers, cameramen. You were all incredibly kind and gracious. And a special thank you to Terry Taylor and Coach Bloom for teaching me so much and being a shoulder to lean on. It's just the end of this chapter and the beginning of a new one. Falling forward, onward, and upward with God's plan." And then she listed her email address. If you want to book Zoe Stark, zstark.booking@gmail.com. I can assure you that some people will be reaching out to her to book her on their shows. I don't think that she's going to be hurting for work when she's ready to make her comeback. Now, it makes me wonder. I can't help but look at this and want, because I mean, we're talking about WWE and TKO and big corporation here. Looking at this and wondering if they were waiting until she was officially healed and medically cleared if they were going to make a move like this. That's the cynic in me. I don't want to believe that that's the case. And also, they have shown in the past that they will let you go even if you are currently out injured. I have other names to get to here. In fact, the next name I'm going to get to falls under that category. So maybe that's not what happened here. I just think that's incredibly shitty. Zoe is a talented wrestler. And Zoe is someone who, as I said, could be... You have 2 women's mid-card championships now in this company that were really only instituted a few months before she got hurt. She would be someone who, again, you can easily plug in. And then if she does really well this run and she really hits it off, then who knows? Maybe she can climb even higher. But they evidently felt that it wasn't worth it. She wasn't worth it. She didn't bring enough value to this company. So they let her go. Santos Escobar. This is another one that is just wild to think about. Santos Escobar was on SmackDown once upon a time, leading a small faction. It was him, it was Angel, it was Berto. And again, they weren't really lighting the world on fire. They really weren't doing a whole lot with them. And then his contract expired. And he chose not to re-sign with WWE, as I recall. And so he was about to become a free agent. I think for a brief period of time, he did become a free agent. WWE apparently really wanted to sign him. They wanted him back. And so they negotiated a new deal. They apparently threw a shit ton of money at this guy. And he agreed to re-sign. And I look at that, I go, hey, good for him. I don't know if that was his plan, but apparently he got a much better deal out of it. And then we didn't hear anything about Santos Escobar for months. For months. And then there was a report that, he kind of fell through the cracks. And so WWE is preparing plans to bring him back very soon. Fell through the cracks. And then they bring him back in AAA. Unfortunately for him, he got injured. I think he got injured back in January. I don't know if he didn't know about it, didn't know the severity of it, hit it. I don't know what happened there. If he got hurt in January, it wasn't until March at that AAA Rey de Reyes show. He was in that 4-way match, and you could tell that something was wrong. He just did not look great in that match. Somehow he worked the match, but I think it was a triceps tear. And so he underwent surgery to repair his arm. Apparently, within the last few weeks, he had a second surgery. There was some issue, I think, with his ulnar nerve, I believe, is what I read. So again, he's going to be out for a while. He just had 2 surgeries. He re-signed with the company because they pursued him. They wanted him back. And so they threw money at him and he agreed to come back, and now he is done. They have fired him. And again, I look at this and I just go, I don't understand how that works. You wanted him so bad. He wasn't even being used on the show in any significant way. It was kind of weird how we have to have him. We have to have him back. And it's like, all right, good for him. He's a talented guy. Hopefully they'll do more with him. But apparently not good enough to hold on to, because now he's out of a job anyway, as it turned out. Again, it's just one of those things. And again, he's hurt at the time. At the moment, he's hurt. So that's one of those names on the list that I just shake my head at and I go, I don't understand. Make it make sense, because to me it doesn't. Apollo Crews. I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know how he survived the previous cuts. Because you talk about somebody who was being paid and showing up to work and really not being utilized outside of maybe wrestling on main event. That is the story of Apollo Crews and his career the last few years. He did get a bit of a push years ago. He was even the Intercontinental Champion at one point. You know how many years ago that was? That was 5 years ago. What have they done with Apollo Crews in the last 4 years? 5 years? Nothing. Good for him. He survived a lot of other waves of cuts. Unfortunately, it caught up with him this time. He should have read JTG's book. See, if he would have read JTG's book, he would have known, don't answer your phone. Unfortunately, he answered his phone, and he ended up on the list. Andre Chase and Dante Chen. They were also released from NXT. Chase, he had not been on NXT television since January. I think the peak of the whole Chase U thing, that was some time ago, as it is. Dante Chen, he was the first Singaporean wrestler ever signed to WWE. He tweeted saying, 5 years, 147 matches. Thank you, WWE. And I don't think he meant it this way, but if that isn't an argument for the need for more house shows, I don't know what is. 147 matches in 5 years isn't very many matches. But he was never really used as anything other than, like a lower card, almost like an enhancement guy to really make the other person look good. I don't ever remember him being pushed in a serious way. Even in NXT, the appearances I remember him making, I don't believe he was ever seriously pushed. Tyra Mae Steele is gone. She won a gold medal in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. First female winner from the first season of WWE LFG. She is gone. This is a kind of an eerie one. I don't know how many of you were paying attention to this, but if you remember, last month she tweeted, it was a very weird tweet, and some people took it to mean that she had been released by WWE, and WWE, I guess, had to put a statement out saying she is in fact not released and she is still under contract. But she had tweeted something about, I guess, having a dream or having a nightmare that resulted in her being released by WWE. But she was just talking about a dream. She was talking about a nightmare that she had. 1 month later, that nightmare has become a reality because she has, in fact, been released by WWE. So that's a little eerie. And the other names on this list, you may or may not know. I only know a handful of them. Serena Linton, Tyson DuPont, Tyreek Igwe, Chris Island, Malik Blade, Trill London, and Luca Crucifino, who I think had been doing stuff in Evolve. They are all gone from WWE. So those are the names that we know of so far. By my count, I believe that makes 24. It's somewhere in that 24 range, and there could be more yet to come. This is all broken just in the last several hours. Sometimes these things will drag on into the weekend or the beginning of the following week. Hopefully that's all of them. Again, no one takes pleasure, and if you do, you're an asshole. No one takes pleasure in hearing that somebody got, fired. So, randomly released, they lost their job, unless there's a damn good reason for it. Some people, if it's a disciplinary thing, that's a different story. But that doesn't seem to be the case here. And I would be very curious to find out more about the Aleister Black one. If that, in fact, was a release, or if it was a case where his wife was released and he is kind of standing with her and opted to leave on his own volition. Again, I don't know if that's what happened here. We'll wait for more information. It's just a terrible thing if you are in that position, because I'm sure for a lot of these people, they've been through it before, and a lot of them haven't. And it's a terrible phone call to get, and then you wonder, okay, well, what's next for me? It's a little bit different if you're an established name. You'll probably be fine. Some of these names, if they want to continue wrestling, if they were out of the PC, let's say, they don't know. They don't know where their future is going to take them. Some of these names on this list, whether it's a Kairi Sane or Santos Escobar, Zoe Stark, someone like that, there are companies, whether it be a TNA or an AEW or what have you, MLW, that will absolutely be able to use them. And hopefully they will land on their feet and they will do well. And who's to say that, years from now, WWE doesn't come calling again? That's what happens sometimes. You get released, Shit happens. You go out, you work, you make yourself into a bigger name and a hotter commodity. And all of a sudden, one day, WWE's like, hey, let's have a conversation. And there have been examples of this before, of people that have left or been fired and have come back. And hopefully that will be the case with some of these folks. If they want to work for WWE again, hopefully that will be the case for them. Hopefully they'll land on their feet. But just some of these names are just puzzling to me. And I would be curious to see if any news comes out about why someone like a Kairi Sane in the middle of a story like that on Monday Night Raw is suddenly let go. I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me. If there were names on this list that were, bigger names, let's say, and you look at that and you hear, oh man, this person was making, high six figures and they're not really being used in a high six figure kind of way. And WWE decided, you know what, that contract has to go. It sucks, but I can understand that. At least there's a logic to that. To me, there's no logic in some of these names being on this list. I don't understand it. And in some cases, yes, you can look at it and go, the WWE really dropped the ball on this person or that person. But then there are other names where, it cuts both ways. Sorry to say, some of these cuts are not surprising at all. Sometimes there are names that are going to be cut and they got to make room for new ones. We have new NXT Callups. That was something we saw on Raw Monday Night. Ethan Page, Sol Ruka. Even earlier this year, Obafemi, Javon Evans, Trick Williams, Jordan Grace. You have to make room for the next generation of stars, which also means that as new names come in, there are going to be names that have to go out. And we've talked about this issue with AEW before. They have a gigantic roster. And they sign and they sign and they sign and they sign people, and you don't hear stories a lot about people who are leaving, about people who are being released, which in a way is kind of good. But you can get to a point where the roster becomes overloaded, and that's not good either, because then you have people who become unhappy because they're not being utilized because there's only so much television time, right? It kind of cuts both ways. That's why everybody on this list can't just go to AEW. But that's why it's also good to have multiple places to go work. AEW, TNA, MLW. I mean, you also have Ring of Honor, which is technically still AEW, but it's good to have multiple places to work. This is an example of why. This is something WWE does just about every single year. And it's to be expected. It sucks, but it's part of life. When you work for that company, you have to accept that. It's part of life. At some point, they're going to turn around when you're of no use to them, you're of no value to them anymore, and they're going to say goodbye. And the question is, do you have a backup plan on what it is that you want to do? I mentioned there being some NXT call-ups on the show tonight. Raw Monday Night, we saw who they were there. It only made sense that we would have more NXT call-ups on the show tonight, and we did. Fatal Influence, the entire trio, JC Jane, Fallon Henley, Lainey Reed. They're officially now part of the SmackDown roster. We also learned tonight that Blake Monroe, the Glamour, is on her way to SmackDown. That is long overdue, and a move that I think will absolutely strengthen the women's division on that show, as will Fatal Influence. Ricky Saints is on his way to SmackDown. He did not debut tonight, but we did get a vignette for him, and he is going to be making his debut in Tulsa next week, which would mean that Ricky Saints and Royce Keys are going to be reunited. Two former members of Team Taz going to be reunited here on this show. And again, these are moves that were needed, especially after what we saw Monday night. SmackDown needed a boost. They got that boost. One boost I thought the show might get was the addition of CM Punk. There was no mention of CM Punk on the show tonight. There was no CM Punk appearance. There was no indication that CM Punk is going to be SmackDown bound. He still could be, but for the time being, it doesn't look like that. Instead, what we had in the main event was Solo Sikoa against Jacob Fatu, who was both on Raw Monday and on SmackDown tonight. And I'm all for more Jacob Fatu. I think he's got a huge upside. I'm a big Jacob Fatu fan. I have no issue with that. But we had the Bloodline stuff. Closed the show out on Monday night. How did they open the show tonight? With the Bloodline stuff. how much of the bloodline are we going to get across these two shows? It was jarring to see on a day where so many non-bloodline names were released and lost their jobs, and they just seem to be flooding the zone with more bloodline stuff on these shows. It was very noticeable. But Jacob is looking for an answer on Monday from Roman Reigns. So tonight what they wanted to do was get him in the main event and get a win under his belt and push the story of him and Roman. Is that going to be the match at Backlash or not? We won't know until Monday night, but that is why they did what they did tonight. And the Usos, by the way, they crossed over from Raw to SmackDown tonight as well, because what brand split? There is no fucking brand split. They can go wherever they want to go. So they decided to show up on SmackDown tonight. Cody Rhodes, his eye is all fucked up. After the WrestleMania Night 1 main event, I thought we would get some sort of injury update on him tonight. We didn't. He came out, he cut a promo, a very basic promo. Certainly nothing as interesting as what we saw with him and Punk on Monday. But there was no mention of whether or not he, suffered some sort of injury. I mean, beyond just what we see with our own two eyes, or if he's medically cleared, or when he might be back in the ring. There was nothing. There was nothing. His eye still looks all gnarly. It'll be a few weeks before he heals up. Doesn't look like he's probably going to be in the ring at Backlash, which I guess doesn't really matter if they have Roman defending his title on that show. But yes, we had more bloodline on the show. And honestly, beyond that, we do have a new United States champion on the women's side. We're going to get into that. This was not a great show. I do like the fact that we're getting some new faces on the show. I think that it's absolutely needed. I think, frankly, a whole fucking reset is needed with this show and this entire product. And we're getting that to some degree with some of these new faces that have been called up. But this was not a great show tonight. It was a decent show. There were definitely things I liked, and there were definitely things I didn't like. And that was really the story of SmackDown. And we're going to get into all of it here, because this is your Friday night SmackDown review on a very newsworthy night. It is Friday night, April 25th, 2026. I am the Solomonster. Like and subscribe. Thank you again for helping me smash 92,000 subscribers earlier this week. I very much appreciate that. Onward we go. Super chats are open. I will unpause them now so you will see them. And I'm going to be going through... Sadly, man, this is the only time you're going to hear that from now on, is on these streams. There will be no more yelling for Kyrie on Monday nights. That actually makes me very sad now, hearing that super chat. Hey, Sea Salt, welcome to the channel. Let's spin the wheel. Not in a very wheelie mood tonight, but let's find out how many likes we need to do Be the Booker later on. Little thing we do at the end of these streams. 530. That is the goal for tonight. So get those likes up, and we're already at 445. So I think we're going to do pretty well. But that is the goal for Be the Booker tonight. Let's take it from the very top here. We got a lot to get into here. I got a lot to say about this show, but it started the same way it ended on Monday night. We saw Jacob Fatu close the show. He opened the show tonight, and he made his way down to the ring after having just challenged Roman Reigns, the brand new World Heavyweight Champion, to a match at Backlash for the title. And I thought that meant that Jacob was moving to Monday Night Raw. Now, maybe he is, but we don't know, because he was right back on SmackDown this week. Not only was he in this segment, but he closed the show in the main event. So who the fuck knows what brand Jacob Fatu is ultimately going to land on. But he comes out and he states that he told Roman that he wanted him and that he needed the world title. And then Roman looked at him in the eye and said, "You're not ready." The truth is, Roman was right, because what Roman told him has been something that he's heard from his friends and family his entire life. If Roman thinks he's not ready, he better step up in the ring to prove it. And that brought out the Usos, who evidently forgot what day of the week it was. They came out here on SmackDown. Jimmy said that he heard what Fatu had to say on Monday about how he wanted to level up for his family. And he said Cody defended his title, but he's slipping. He said that should be his target, not Roman. And he warned not to go after the OTC and instead run the play with the family. And the fans, I will point out, the fans were booing this. Like these two guys were heels. And Jimmy basically said, just ignore them. Don't listen to what these people have to say. Said they're not going to give you that lifestyle. They're not going to give you the big money. They're not going to put your kids in nicer schools. So then Jay chimed in and he said, it's too late. Said Jacob stepped up. He opened his mouth. He said that it was time to see if he can swim in the deep end. And to get respect from Roman, you need to walk up to him, look him in the eye, and get ready for war. So now the MFTs were out, all but Tala Tonga. He was never mentioned. He was never seen. It's as if he just didn't exist in this world anymore, which, again, has me wondering if we're going to see his name on a list very soon. Hopefully he's just sick or maybe he missed his flight. But on a day where you had about 24 people released from this company, not a good time to be no-showing here on this show. That's probably not a good sign. But the other members of the MFTs came out. Solo Sikoa said the Usos were lying to him. He took credit for bringing Jacob into WWE. He said Fatu wasn't going to beat Roman alone. He's going to need an army in the form of the MFTs. Tama Tonga then swiped the microphone out of Solo's hand and he asked him, why are we wasting our time with this? He said, Fatu is a lost cause. He couldn't even beat you. So Tama got super kicked by Jacob, who told Solo that the only one who should be talking to him right now is Roman Reigns. And Fatu then issued the challenge to Solo to face him later tonight in the main event. This was your typical revolving door WWE opening promo segment. As far as continuing the Bloodline stuff from Monday into Friday, I really wish we would get some more variety on these shows. I mean, if they want to put up some semblance of or pretend that there's a real split going on here, I don't think we need, the Bloodline stuff takes up enough oxygen as it is. And that's fine on Monday, if that's where Roman's going to be. I don't know why we need it on this show as well, when there's so many other people who could use that time. But Jacob being featured in a title role like this, where he's like the main player, I can get behind that. That I do like. I like the added focus on him. He got that big win at WrestleMania over Drew McIntyre, who was not on this show. Maybe he's off filming more for his Highlander movie. So they sent it to Kathy Kelly in the back, who interviewed Giulia and Kiana James about Giulia's upcoming U.S. title match with Tiffany Stratton. And Kiana said that they were both mad about the lack of respect. She said it only lit a fire under them to beat Tiffany. Giulia said she feels no pressure, only anger. Giulia was very upset about being left off the WrestleMania card. And I'm sure some of that is very real emotion, because I'm sure she was not happy about being left off that card as, I believe, the only singles champion, right? Or certainly one of them. I mean, we know that both women's world titles were defended, and we know the women's IC and the women's tag titles were defended. So Giulia was the only women's champion on the main roster to not have a title match either night of WrestleMania. I would be upset too if I were her. But in this segment, if you watch their...
It's a direction you can fuck.
Hey, thank you, Jeremy. If you watch their body language and listen to what they were saying here in this segment, they're definitely teasing a split between these two. Giulia was not happy with Kiana. Kiana was not happy with Giulia. They were both being very snippy with each other, which I think is long overdue. I don't see... this pairing has not helped either one of them. How has this pairing really benefited Giulia? The benefit for Kiana James is that those rare occasions where she gets on the show, she's usually in a speaking role, usually speaking for Asuka, speaking for Giulia. Giulia doesn't do a whole lot of speaking. But realistically, how has this benefited either one of these women? Like, the sooner they split them, I would like to say the better off they'll be. But then again, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing for Giulia and her long-term future in this company. Especially after what we saw here in this next match, which was Giulia defending her United States Championship against Tiffany Stratton. Fast-paced early on, they had dueling pinfall attempts from both women. Tiffany grabbed Kiana when she tried to interfere. Giulia tried to come in for something. She accidentally collides with Kiana, and I'm just saying, uh-oh, that's not good. Tiffany hit Giulia with her rolling senton. She went up top for the prettiest moonsault ever. And Giulia caught her on the way down into what I thought was going to be an armbar. But she transitioned into kind of like a Rings of Saturn. It was actually a very cool counter of the PME. So Tiffany got out of it, but then she got blasted with the Arrivederci knee. What a sin it would be, by the way, if they let Giulia go and they're a month out from their first show, their first PLE in Italy. Can you imagine? Here I was like a month ago, 2 months ago, thinking, oh, Giulia should get a match on that show. She's got some Italian roots. She could defend her title on that show. She may not even be employed by the time they get to that show, the way things are going. How fucked up would that be? So Tiffany reversed the Northern Lights bomb into an Alabama slam. She followed with the prettiest moonsault ever. This time it connected, and Tiffany Stratton is your brand new United States champion. I thought it was, and it went about 8 minutes. I thought it was solid for those 8 minutes. But again, Giulia losing the title today of all days. You going to tell me I'm wrong? Not to be worried for this woman? I think that's a terrible sign. I think that's a very bad sign for her future. But as far as her second run, she had 2 runs as the United States champion, and neither of them were successful. Because if they were successful, then she wouldn't be in the position that she's in right now. Where I feel like she's on the bubble. I feel like she may be a lost cause on this show. They've never really fully gotten behind her. They've never really allowed her to go out there and, again, this was 8 minutes. That's decent enough. She really hasn't had the chance to go out there and engage with somebody in a way where she can really show off what she can do. I'm not saying she has to go out there and stiff people and injure them. I'm just saying we really haven't seen Giulia, the real Giulia. We have yet to see her on SmackDown. We saw more of her in NXT than we have on SmackDown. And she's another one. I mentioned the Motor City Machine Guns, right? Very talented. I like those guys. They weren't over. They weren't getting reactions on the show. Giulia goes out there. She doesn't get any reactions on the show. You can be a Giulia fan, but you can't be blind to this. And that's what worries me. But I just feel like they haven't really done a whole lot with her. She's walking around with a championship. That's great. But what does that really mean if you're not doing a whole hell of a lot on the show? And I also don't think they trust her on promos because she'll speak, but it's like in sound bites. And if you've heard Giulia, her English is actually not that bad. Like, she could go out there in the back or wherever and cut a promo if they wanted her to cut a promo on somebody. But I just feel like they don't let her go out there and do what she can do, you know, to the best of her ability. She's kind of limited in that way. And you couple that with the fact that she's just not getting over with the audience. That's the kiss of death. I think they see more in Kiana James than they do in Giulia. I think of the two, if I had to say one is safe and the other is not, I think Kiana is safe. I really do. I think they see Kiana as somebody who could really be a player in that women's division. I don't think they see Giulia the same way. It sucks, but I really don't. I've seen nothing that they have done on these shows to demonstrate to me that they see the value in Giulia in being a real top tier player in that women's division. And it doesn't help that she was left off the WrestleMania card, the only champion to be left off the WrestleMania card. We got a pre-tape vignette of Danhausen. I think they said this was earlier today or earlier this week. Visiting the Miz's house. The Miz is living in this palatial estate. I don't know if this was his real house. Probably not, but whatever. It's a beautiful home. Whoever's house it is. It's like when Cody Rhodes went to Drew McIntyre's house that time. That wasn't Drew McIntyre's house. But anyway, so he goes and he rings the doorbell, and Miz, you know, he opens the door. He can't believe. First of all, he opens the door and nobody's there. But then he turns around and Danhausen has somehow teleported into his house. And he asks him, you know, what are you doing in my house? How did you find my house? And he orders him to leave. And Miz turns around, I think, to close the door or open the door. I don't know, whatever. But he turns back around and Danhausen is gone. So Miz goes walking through the house and he goes to the backyard and he finds Danhausen is lounging in his pool. And the Miz, He does not want Danhausen lounging in his pool. And he says, get out of my pool. And so he did. But all he did was teleport himself into the outer pool. It's the best way I could describe this. It's like a main pool in the middle, and then there's like kind of like an outer pool. He goes, well, I am. You told me to get out of that pool, so now I'm in the other pool. And Miz just comes charging at him. Of course, no one's there, and Miz falls in the water. And it says in the corner of the screen, to be continued. So we're going to get a follow-up vignette later on in the show. Call it my guilty pleasure. I got a kick out of this. We come back. Tiffany Stratton is being interviewed by, was it Kathy? I think Kathy was the one who was interviewing her. Not on the stage, but it was kind of like, this was one of those weird things where they're filming this and you can see the crowd in the background, but they're kind of by the stage or just kind of off to the side. And she's going to do an interview here with Tiffany, the brand new champion. And Tiffany said it felt amazing to be on top again. She was no longer stuck in second place as the runner-up. Said that she's ready to show that the WWE is operating on Tiffy time. But she's interrupted. She's interrupted by Brie mode. Out comes Brie Bella with her shiny new Women's Tag Team Championship belt. She raises it high above her head. And then Paige comes out. And this was Paige's return to SmackDown. She used to be the general manager on this show, I believe. Many years ago, almost a decade ago. So she comes out with her tag team title. And the champions made their way down to the ring. And Brie noted that, while it's a shame that she couldn't win these titles with her sister, shout out to Nikki. She's at home recovering. She was more than happy to do so alongside an old friend like Paige. And she welcomed Paige back to WWE. So Paige spoke, and she was starting to lose her voice. She apologized. She said that she had a hectic week. When she got the call from Brie, though, about tagging with her at WrestleMania, she said that that was something that she couldn't say no to. She was more than happy to answer. And she said it was a rough road to get back here, but she was happy to be back home. SmackDown is still her house, she said. So that brought out Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. And Flair said that she could speak for herself and Alexa in welcoming Paige back, but she had something that belonged to them. And Charlotte suggested that if Paige wanted to prove that she was the best, she and Brie could defend their women's tag team titles against the two of them. So the challenge was accepted. They called for a referee. Here comes Charles Robinson charging down to the ring like it's WrestleMania 24 all over again. And that took us into the commercial break. That is 2 impromptu matches on this show so far that have been made, which again begs the question, what is Nick Aldis doing during the week? He continues to make the case for the worst general manager in WWE. So they come back from break. And the title match here is already in progress. Bliss and Flair, they cut the ring in half on Brie. Brie was about to make a hot tag to Paige when who should show up and pull her down off the apron and send her into the ring steps? JC Jane. And the referee calls for the disqualification. Fallon Henley and Lainey Reed of Fatal Influence also show up, and they beat down Flair and Bliss. And they left all 4 women laying. So Fatal Influence has arrived here officially on SmackDown. And the match itself, it wasn't a match. It was an angle. It was a means to get to the Fatal Influence arrival. That's all this was. I love the move. I think it is something that this roster and this show sorely needs. Not just more talent, but more talent in the women's division. Although I could also sit here and tell you that part of the problem isn't necessarily the lack of women in the women's division. It is the lack of really understanding what to do with most of the women that they already have in the division, because you have people like Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. Paige is back now, who are still doing stuff in the tag team division. Like if they were all gunning for the world champion, if Alexa Bliss, if Charlotte Flair wanted to go after Rhea Ripley's title, which I would assume in time they will, that would make things a lot more interesting as it pertains to the WWE Women's Championship, but that's just not the case right now. So like when you're thinking about Rhea Ripley and her upcoming challengers, what do you think of? I'm sure she's not done with Jade, right? Jade wasn't on the show tonight, but I'm sure Jade will get her rematch at some point. And then after that, who are we looking at? Tiffany Stratton just won the U.S. title. Blake Monroe hasn't even debuted yet. So when I think of potential challengers in these next few months for Rhea Ripley, it's a short list. After Jade, it's a short list. Jordynne Grace. Now, Jordynne Grace was also Jade's first feud. I mean, Jade went 100+ days without a single title defense. If you remember, her first defense was against Jordan, I believe, and then she lost. So I would hate for Jordynne to be using the same role here where it's like, oh, Rhea needs an opponent, and then she goes in there and loses again. But Rhea and Jordynne, I mean, that has the makings of a very good match. I'd love to see that. Kiana James, again, I think that they have big things in her future. I think we see names like that, long before we get to a Charlotte or an Alexa. But I've always liked Fallon Henley. I actually thought at the time they put the belt on JC Jane. And the thing with JC is, you look at her rise to where she is now. When I used to look at Fatal Influence or Toxic Attraction was the first group that she was a part of. I never saw her as being like the world champion, right? That was Mandy Rose. Mandy Rose was like, she was the NXT Women's Champion. And then I would look at JC Jane, and JC maybe would be like, North American champion or something like that. And then they had her beat Stephanie Vaquer last year in shocking fashion. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I thought that Fallon Henley had a bigger upside. I don't know why they went with her and not Fallon. They were part of the same group. And I came around. Eventually, I came around on JC. The more that I saw her work, she really leveled up. And Shawn Michaels obviously was a huge fan of her work. I've become more of a fan of her work over time, certainly compared to a year ago. So good for her. And now she's got the call and she's on SmackDown now. But I wanted Fallon Henley in that spot, if anybody. So all that to say that I also think Fallon could do big things on this show, and I like her now being on SmackDown. Lainey Reed, I haven't seen enough of her to really form an opinion, honestly. I haven't seen too much of her work. She may be really good. I don't know. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of what she can do, not just in the ring, but even speaking-wise on this show. So I like the move, and it injects some life into the division. We had Royce Keys. Of course, he is also one of the new members of the SmackDown roster. And here we had a vignette for him. Various people from Palo Alto, which is where he's from, gave their thoughts on him, talked about how proud they were of him. His brother, I believe, was interviewed in here. He was also proud that, his brother was able to make it to the top. And it was just one of these babyface vignettes where they show him, kind of going back home, and everybody's proud of him and pulling for him, and they look up to him. So after this, we had the WWE champion, Cody Rhodes. Fresh off his win at WrestleMania against Randy Orton. He was out to the ring next, black eye and all. And he gets in the ring, and once the music stopped, he was showered with boos from the crowd. He said that he wanted to talk about how he left WrestleMania 42, battered, half-conscious, and bloodied. He still made the decision to walk up that long ramp at Allegiant Stadium to the back. Why? Because the moment that you see him take that side ramp, right, and go along the side, this run is over. Said at WrestleMania he wanted to send a message to Randy Orton, who was not here tonight, so we didn't have Randy Orton on the show either. It was Randy Orton who started him out in this sport and taught him everything he knows. He wanted to send a message in walking back on his own power that Randy Orton gave him his best shot, a punt to the head, and he's still standing. He wants to send a message to a sarcastic and condescending Sami Zayn, who called him the Golden Boy. So he showed up to WrestleMania draped in gold from head to toe because he wanted to show that he was gold. His family was gold. Every fan of his was gold. And the most important message he wanted to send was to those outside forces. This is what he said. Outside forces that keep interjecting themselves into his WrestleMania plans. He said, you guys are 0-3. Send your best or count your money and mind your damn business. This is the first SmackDown after WrestleMania. He says it's easy to find him, whether you're from NXT, from Monday Night Raw, or from Friday Night SmackDown, wherever it may be, he's easy to find, hard to beat. I was I was hoping he would say hard to kill. Little tribute to one of the better Steven Seagal movies. Not that there is a great Steven Seagal movie, but of the ones that he's made, that would be one of them. So I'm wondering, him mentioning it doesn't matter where you're from, NXT, Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, was that meant to be a veiled reference, a veiled message to CM Punk? One would assume so after what we saw from the two of them on Raw Monday night. He flat out told Punk, you name the place, right? Punk's all about, well, you never know when a championship opportunity may fall out of the sky. He said that twice on Monday, by the way. So what does that mean? We were talking about that on TNT the other night. JD mentioned Money in the Bank. And I thought, well, could be. Could be. Punk's already won Money in the Bank, I think, twice. Money in the Bank, though, is not until September. So, I mean, what, if it was some sort of Money in the Bank reference, then I suppose Punk would be walking around with it until WrestleMania next year. I'm not so sure they wouldn't do that match at SummerSlam this year if they're already teasing it so hard. So I assume that was a not so veiled message to Punk. But again, as interesting as that segment was on Monday and seeing the two of them in the ring together, Punk and Cody actually closed SmackDown last week. I mean, I wasn't here to talk about it. I was coming home from Las Vegas, but they ended the show. It was basically like a love fest between the two of them. I thought they were going to embrace and start tonguing each other in the middle of the ring. And then on Raw Monday night, we had a much better segment and far less lovey-dovey between the two of them that strongly hinted at an upcoming match at some point between the two of them. And that's interesting because to me, that's one of the biggest matches that WWE can do right now. Realistically, when you think of what are the biggest matches that WWE can book right now, and not including The Rock, okay, because The Rock ain't coming back. Cody and Punk. Cody and Punk. You could say Roman and Oba. You could say Roman and Gunther. But honestly, I think Cody and Punk is at the top of that list. That's a match that hasn't been done yet. That's a match that I think people would want to see. And it's an interesting match where you could do babyface and let the fans choose. But also, like, Punk is a heel in that scenario would be great. Cody is a heel in that scenario would be great. It kind of works, like, no matter which way you want to do it. So hopefully we get it at SummerSlam and they don't make us wait until next year. Oh, I underlooked Under Siege. Yeah, well, I didn't say that was the only decent movie he did. You mentioned Under Siege. How can you neglect Under Siege 2 on the train? One of my favorite quotes is from that movie. Assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups. It's one of the great quotes from Under Siege 2. And it's quite true. The more you assume things, the more you're likely to fuck up. There was no mention here of him being medically cleared or what his medical status was. I mean, you could just look at his face. He ain't going to be wrestling for at least a few weeks. So I think a Backlash match is out the window, even if they had an opponent lined up for him. I mean, we're going to get a rematch with him and Randy. I don't know when we're going to see Orton again, but it doesn't seem to me like Backlash is even going to be possible if his eye is looking like that. I mean, I would imagine that they are going to need it to, even if there's nothing broken, that eye's going to have to clear up a little bit before he gets back in the ring. But yeah, there was no medical update. There was no hint of when we may see him back in the ring. But I just wanted to say one last thing here about the Pat McAfee angle. We saw what they did at WrestleMania. That was their way of writing off Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee did not want to have anything to do with this anymore. I don't think, honestly, he wanted to have anything to do with this at the beginning. There were reports that he said no initially when they pitched it to him. And I don't know what they did to get him on board. Maybe they threw a bunch of money at him. But I think even he realized based on the reaction, like this is a mistake. He's a fan and he sees all the negative reaction. And as much as he seemed to be sort of reveling in it when he was on television, I would imagine someone like him, who probably has a big ego and cares about what people say about him because he's a public figure, is looking at his social media every single day, and he is just getting slaughtered on social media. And then you have Jelly Roll, who's a genuine fan, and Jelly Roll flat out said in his vlog that he did the other day, he had a message for Pat McAfee. He said, "Pat, I love you, brother, but like you and I, we really don't have any business being a part of this. So why don't we just stick to what we do?" And you know what? That's a great message. And I think they both, if you were to ask both of them to be as honest as possible, I think that they would feel the same way about what they were a part of as a lot of the fans did watching the show at home on TV, or the fans on social media who were complaining about it. So this tag match that was rumored for Backlash and made sense if you really think about it, isn't happening now because Pat McAfee wanted to end this as soon as possible. And they're just basically hitting the reset button now, and we're going to get the Cody and Randy feud that we should have gotten going into WrestleMania. There are even reports that they were going to put the belt on Randy at WrestleMania. The plan was to make him a 15-time world champion at WrestleMania. But then when Pat pulled out, plans changed. They decided to go a different way with it. I don't know why Pat pulling out would have to affect the outcome of that match, but I guess McAfee made that, he made that promise that if Randy doesn't win, you'll never see or hear from me again. So maybe they felt they had to have Randy lose the match as a way to get rid of Pat. Whatever it was, I'm glad the angle is over, but I think we will look back on this WrestleMania forever, really, looking back on 42 and just saying, man, what could have been? What could have been with this story of this match going into night one of WrestleMania? Because some of the work in the actual match, like down the stretch, was actually pretty good. On the whole, I didn't think the match was nearly as good as it could have been. But a lot of it, again, like this dark cloud that just hung over it with this horrendous angle. And you have Cody in this promo tonight referencing outside forces and, keep your nose out of my business and count your money and just, basically leave me the fuck alone. And I don't know if this is, if that verbiage is in that promo for a particular reason, if there's going to be some sort of development out of this. I'm sure the answer is no. They're just going to move on from this. I wonder how much of that is Cody just wanting to vent his frustrations, and Triple H is like, sure, go ahead. Have at it. Because that Cody is, he's looking at all this going, man, you fucked up my whole story here. And this is not the first time here going into WrestleMania that something that should have been beautiful has been ruined. Like, how many WrestleManias are we going to continue to do this? I'm sure he's legitimately as frustrated as anybody. How could he not be? How could he not be? Damian Priest and R-Truth, they are the tag team champions. And they defended their titles against Tama Tonga and JC Mateo. Backstage before the match, though, Solo Sikoa was giving marching orders to the MFTs. Solo said he wants them to get the tag titles back. Don't let the family down. And as the others walked off, the great Tonga Loa. Wait until I get to the main event. We're going to talk more about Tonga Loa. Tonga Loa looked at Solo and asked him about Jacob. What about Jacob? And Solo said, I'll take care of Jacob. Don't worry about him. So Truth got the hot tag late in the match. He did the Ron Cena spots to JC Mateo. You can't see me in the 5-knuckle shuffle. Tonga Loa distracted the referee as Tama ran in. He hit Truth with a spinning neck breaker. So they covered Truth, and the spot was that Damian Priest would dive in at the last possible second to break it up. He was a little late, so it looked like shit. Priest blind tagged into the match, though. He and Truth hit their rise up flapjack finish to retain the titles in a boring match. This tag team division is dead. D-E-A-D, dead. Dead. No wonder they're releasing tag teams. They're not planning on doing anything with them. They have a dead division. They don't give a shit. They don't care. It's not much better on Monday Night Raw. At least we got the Street Profits back on Monday. We haven't seen them in months. But it's not much better on Monday. It's worse on Friday, though. We got part 2 from the Miz's mansion. This is after he fell in the pool earlier. Miz was in his house. He was playing, Danhausen was actually in the house. He was playing Miz's virtual golf game. It's like he has like a giant screen, and there's like, it's clearly a game, and he's golfing. And Miz, I don't know what it is. I don't know if that's a Wii game or what the fuck that is. Some sort of golfing simulation. And so Miz walks into the house and is asking him what he's doing. And anyway, he ends up grabbing Miz's Slammy because he sees he's got a trophy case with belts and there's a Slammy award. So he snatches the Slammy award, the base of the award, that black base, it goes flying off of it. So he goes to leave. He's going to leave with the Slammy award, and he opens the front door and he walks out and he runs into Maurice, who is not very happy about seeing Danhausen, especially coming out of her house. So she's not happy about this. Miz comes running out with a bowl of, I couldn't tell if it was, what was it, cinnamon? It looked like a bowl of cinnamon, I think. I don't know. Something brown. It wasn't shit. So Miz threw it, and Danhausen ducked. And of course, Miz hit his poor wife in the face with this substance. And Danhausen ends up on a bicycle, a small child's bicycle. It was their daughter's bicycle. And he's got the Slammy award with him. And he starts riding the bike away. And they cut back to Miz and Maurice is covered in brown shit. And Miz is muttering to himself. And then they cut back, and the bike now is kind of off in the distance as Danhausen is riding it away through the neighborhood. I thought it was really funny. Look, I enjoyed these segments. I think we need more segments like this. They don't all have to be with Danhausen, by the way. But I like shit like this. Like when it's done the right way and it's not like overly terrible. I think it's nice to break up the monotony and have segments like this outside of the arena, outside the ring. So I got a kick out of this. Danhausen is perfect for this type of stuff. And I'm not surprised that Fanatics apparently was blown away by the kind of business that Danhausen did merch-wise over WrestleMania week. I'm not shocked by that at all. And because of that, you're going to see even more Danhausen on these shows. They're going to run this fucking guy into the ground. But for now, I still get a kick out of his act. We weren't done with him, by the way. When I tell you that we're going to see more Danhausen on these shows, he's cross-branded. Don't be surprised if he pops up from time to time in NXT either. But he's on Raw, he's on SmackDown. So we already had two pre-taped segments with him on this show. We weren't done with him yet because he had a match later against The Miz. We'll get to that. But this next segment, we had the brand new men's United States champion because we have two new U.S. champions now. We had Trick Williams, who still has Lil Yachty with him. And they make their way out to the ring with the gingerbread man. The guy in the gingerbread costume was back. And so they make their way to the ring. They're going to celebrate a very successful WrestleMania. Ring was all decked out with balloons, and they had champagne in the ring. So Lil Yachty talked about how the WrestleMania celebrity promo tour is now over, but he's still here because he's here to stay. Trick and Yachty, they talked about how they were like, and they were going back and forth here, but they were like Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. They're like Mike Tyson and Don King. They're like Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson. Abbott and Costello. Beavis and Butthead. They didn't mention those. Yachty called himself the Prophecy. I don't think if Lil Yachty ever saw a single Abbott and Costello movie, I would be stunned. I think if he actually saw any of the early Beavis and Butthead episodes, I would be stunned. How old is Lil Yachty? Is he in his 20s, 30s? Can you picture Lil Yachty sitting at home watching it, Abbott and Costello hold that ghost? I'd become a big fan of his if he did. I love Abbott and Costello. Anyway, Yachty called himself the Prophecy. And he said that there would be no more U.S. title open challenges. They're not giving out title matches for free anymore. Rocky and Bullwinkle. Siegfried and Roy. Ren and Stimpy. Penn and Teller. Penn and Teller. Oh, Keenan and Kel. I like Keenan and Kel. I used to watch that from time to time. So anyway, I said this months ago. I said we had Sami Zayn with the U.S. Title Open Challenges. We had Ilya Dragunov with the U.S. Title Open Challenges. Then we had Carmelo Hayes, who was nowhere to be found on this show tonight, by the way. He continued the U.S. Title Open Challenges. When Trick Williams won the belt, or any heel, that's when you stop doing the Open. And the Open Challenge gimmick had to stop at some point. So it made sense to stop it when a heel, even though he's not really being, treated by the fans like one, but it made sense that now would be the right time to put the kibosh on that. They will be missed, though. I will tell you that those U.S. Title Open Challenges were propping up this show something fierce. And the fact that we're not going to have those anymore, they're going to have to step up their game. There's going to have to be, from time to time, week to week, you've got to give us on a 3-hour wrestling show some action that we can look at. And I'm not just talking some 7-minute fucking average throwaway bullshit match with interference or fucking DQ at the end or the same shit that we see every single week. This person's going to get involved and we're going to go to a commercial and someone's going to do a dive and we're going to come back and it's going to be the same fucking boring match and nothing happens. Okay, that shit gets old. You have 3 hours of this show every single week. So sure, from time to time, you're going to have a match or a segment that doesn't go very long, or it has some sort of fuck finish of some kind, or you're going to do a Danhausen type skit. That's fine to have variety on these shows, but you need to have strong wrestling as well. It is still at its core a wrestling show. There is a ring, you have wrestlers, you have a referee, you ring the bell. We need to have some quality matches on this show, and those U.S. Title Open Challenges were guaranteed great wrestling on the show every single week. We can have 2.5 hours of shit. And I could be like, man, Carmelo Hayes, though, man. Carmelo Hayes and Ray Phoenix, they had a fucking banger on the show, man. You got to go out of your way to watch that match. Now we're not even going to have that. So I hope they allow other people on the show to step up and at least fill the void. Because that easily was one of the strongest things on the show every single week. You have now taken that away. What is going to replace that? And don't tell me more MFTs or I'm going to bang my head against the wall. Trick said that if you want a handout, find a clinic. No more open challenges. He said if you want to find the champ, you find Trick Williams. So he's celebrating and Lil Yachty is celebrating and the guy in the gingerbread costume is celebrating. And all of a sudden, the guy in the gingerbread man costume hits Trick from behind with his cane. Come to think of it, I don't know why he had a cane. Not like he's not fucking Mr. Peanut. Why did he have a cane? I don't know, but I guess the gingerbread man was a pimp. So he hits Trick in the back with the cane, and then he hits Yachty as well. Yachty gets hit with the cane. And sure enough, off comes the head, and it's Sami Zayn in the gingerbread costume. And the fans boo. Even on commentary, like Joe Tessitore was kind of like the tone of his voice. He's talking about Sami like he had done something wrong here. He was kind of treating him like the heel in this situation, even though he really didn't do anything wrong. But yeah, the fans were just raining boos at, and Sami's looking at them like, what? Like, I didn't do anything wrong. And then he starts dancing and stuff. So they're going to continue this, which I figured they would. And that would seem to be a prime candidate for a match at Backlash. Backlash usually has some WrestleMania rematches. Liv and Stephanie being one. This could be another one. But I thought, as far as the segment, again, he ended by giving Trick a haluva kick, which Tessitore called the gingerbread kick. I thought that this was fine for what it was supposed to be. I was amused by this. Again, the fans are the ones who are dictating this double turn. They're booing Sami. They like Trick. There isn't much the WWE really needs to do other than just lean into it. So in the back, Solo Sikoa yet again tried to recruit Royce Keys as he was being interviewed about his Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal win on the show last week. He eliminated Tala Tonga to win that Battle Royal. That may end up being the last time we see Tala Tonga on these shows. But Solo comes in, he's trying to recruit him, and I'm just thinking, man, run. Run as fast as your feet will carry you away from this man. Do not want to be drawn into the MFT vortex. But then we had Danhausen against Mizhausen. Danhausen drove to the ring in his coffin-shaped, I guess the coffin mobile. What else do you even call this thing? I don't even know what this thing would be called. And he had Miz's Slammy with him. So he drove down to the ring and he circled the ring. By the way, on the Slammy Award, he had a piece of paper with his name taped to it. Right above Slammy, it said Danhausen. I also could have sworn, tell me if I'm wrong, by the way, when he rode that car down to the ring, was there a fan in the front row, like right in the corner by the aisle, who threw money into the car? Did I see that right? Did that person throw money into the car? So Kit Wilson was in Miz's corner for this match, and Wilson grabbed Miz's Slammy, which was sitting on top of the car. Danhausen caught Miz with a crossbody and a diving Hurricane Rana. The announcers were stunned by this, that he even knew that move. Wilson got up on the apron for the distraction. That allowed Miz to attack Danhausen. She did. Okay, I see. There was a fan who threw money at Danhausen, threw money into the car like he's a whore or something. Like he's whoring himself out. Like what are you doing here? Oh man. Guy must be doing something right. He's got fans literally throwing money at him. So where was I? Danhausen got taken out by Miz. So Miz and Kit Wilson are on the apron and they're celebrating. They got their backs turned. And the camera is focused on Danhausen, who's laid out flat. And now he does the Undertaker zombie sit-up. And he's going to put a curse on these two. And he goes, "You are cursed." And when he does it, the sparks fly. That spark pyro, the sparks fly right where Miz and Kit Wilson are standing. It knocks Wilson down. And it knocks Miz backwards. And Danhausen rolls up Miz for the win. Not even 2 minutes into this match. So they kept it short. It did not need to be longer than this. They kept it brief. And so Danhausen is celebrating in the ring when the match is over. And Miz recovers and they end up face to face. And Danhausen's like, oh shit. And then we see the big puff of smoke. And I guess he forgets to run away. He goes, oh shit. And he turns around and he leaves. And Miz chases after him. And he ends up crawling under the ring. So Miz goes after him. And Danhausen comes out on the other side. He leaps over Kit Wilson. Here comes Miz, who bumps into Kit Wilson. And they do like a double pratfall. And Danhausen, he left his Slammy sitting on the steps, by the way. But he jumped into the Danhausen mobile, the coffin car, and he drives to the back. And this was all very silly. But again, for the most part, I'm enjoying the Danhausen stuff. It doesn't take up too much time on the show, although he did get 3 segments tonight. But the vignettes I enjoyed. I just wish the rest of the show was really strong, and then I feel like I would enjoy this even more. The fact that like this is taking up time on a show where there really isn't a whole lot else going on that's terribly interesting, that's the problem. I don't have a problem with the silliness, but when the silliness is like all that you have, then there's a problem. That's the issue with SmackDown right now. We got a Blake Monroe vignette confirming that she is on her way to the main roster. The glamour is coming soon. Now, they didn't say coming to SmackDown. And the fact that this aired on SmackDown will lead you to believe that she's going to SmackDown. I'm going to wait until Monday and see if they air this on Monday. Because it could be one of those things where they're going to air these on both shows and then decide which brand they want her on. So it looks like it'll be SmackDown, but that's not confirmed yet. I'm guessing she ends up on SmackDown, though. Again, SmackDown can use her. SmackDown could definitely use her. She should have been up on the main roster a long time ago. She's more than ready. We have the brand new WWE Women's Champion, Rhea Ripley, who was out to the ring for her promo. No Io Sky. She's without her BFF. She's all by herself. It's just her oos. And she comes down to the ring. And she talked about how, mommy is champion again. She said at WrestleMania, Jade Cargill proved that she can go. She said, though, it's her time now to prove that she is a fighting champion. She said, anybody in the back who wants to step up, come on down. And that brought out Fatal Influence, who made their debut earlier in the night. Jacy Jayne, Fallon Henley, Lainey Reed. I think Joe Tessitore might have called her Lainey Red at one point. So the crowd. Let's talk about this crowd here. Jacy starts cutting this promo. She says, we get it, Rhea, you're a star. As she begins speaking, the boos are completely drowning out this woman on the mic. The boos are overwhelmed. We talk about boos. Okay, I'm not talking about like Ric Flair, but we talk about boos and like Dominic Mysterio nuclear heat when he was still getting like the peak of that nuclear heat on these shows. That's what this woman was getting. It was so loud. And so I tweeted, I said, holy shit, Jacy Jayne is getting nuclear heat on this show. And then the longer the segment went, and then some of the other members spoke, Fallon spoke, and she got a ton of heat, and then Lainey spoke, and she got a ton of heat. And I'm looking at the fans in the first 3 or 4 rows, and they're not really saying anything. They're not reacting. They're not doing much of anything. And now I'm listening to how loud. I'm like, okay. Now, I don't doubt that there were, and I had people who tweeted me when I said that. They're like, I'm in the building. I'm telling you, like, it's really loud in here. Yes, it's loud. Of course it's loud. We could hear it. But like how much of it was genuine heat and how much of it was them, kind of sweetening the crowd up a little bit. There was definitely a mix of both going on there. So I would like to think that they were genuinely getting that level of heat. But it didn't carry over into the match because the majority of the match didn't have a whole lot of heat at all. I think they were definitely cranking it up a bit. But even still, like, it's great to see them getting a reaction, even if it's close to that, right out of the gate, right, on their first night. So that was cool. But yeah, Jacy cut the majority of this promo. It was hard to hear what some of them were saying because it was so loud. Rhea said, boy, I thought Jade was cocky. She said, I'm used to being on the wrong side of the numbers game, but if you are down for a fight, I'm ready. So Jacy said, Fatal Influence is always ready to throw hands. And that brought out Nick Aldis. And he said that he was thinking of a punishment for Fatal Influence for what they did earlier in the show. And she's standing in the ring. And so he booked Rhea Ripley against Jacy Jayne right now. And that is match number 3 impromptu on this show. We had an impromptu main event. We had an impromptu women's tag team title match earlier in the show. And now we had an impromptu match here with Rhea and with Jacy. So again, what does Nick Aldis do over the course of his week? Other than have fun with Mickie James. What else does this man do? We need a day in the life of Nick Aldis. We need a vlog to follow around Nick Aldis. He's on the golf course probably, right? With his 9-iron, hitting holes. What does this guy do on a day-to-day basis? Got a 3-hour show to book. What was he planning on putting out there if these matches were not made on the spot? Like 1, I can understand. 3 of them? So they went to a commercial at that point. And again, I'm watching this match and people love Rhea Ripley, but it really struck me as I'm watching this because it got real quiet, during certain points of this. And I'm like, if the crowd really hated Jacy Jayne that much, you would think some of that heat would carry over into some of the stuff she was doing in the match. And that really wasn't the case here. But we got Sol Ruca making her Raw debut on Monday, and her first night in, she's wrestling the women's world champion, Liv Morgan. And so here on this show, Jacy Jayne, in her first night in, getting a non-title match against the champion, Rhea Ripley. So they ended up outside the ring. Rhea got Jacy up in an electric chair position, slammed her down face first on the apron. Fallon and Lainey, they distracted Rhea. That allowed Jacy to hit Rhea with a PK. Later on, Jacy crotched Rhea on top. Rhea fought out. She hit Jacy with the cheeky Nando's kick. And Rhea hit Jacy with a razor's edge. She went for Riptide. Fallon Henley ran in, clipped Rhea with a chop block for the disqualification. And Henley and Reed, they held Rhea. They were allowing JC to hit Rhea with her rolling encore discus elbow. The disqualification was to be expected here. I'm actually glad that they did something like that instead of just beating, which is what they did on Monday. I mean, they beat Sol Ruca, but they blamed it on Zarya, for getting involved. But she still got hit with Oblivion and pinned. So you could have done that here where she just took a riptide and got pinned. But why? Why beat JC that way on her first night in? Former NXT Women's Champion. Like, why would you do that? So I expected the DQ. Otherwise here, I mean, as far as the match, it was pretty standard fare. I'm happy they sent Fatal Influence back out there, though. Instead of just having them do that quick run-in and then that's it until next week. I like the fact that they sent them back out there so they got multiple segments on the show. And even though it was hard to hear what some of them were saying, they, in their promos, they were able to sort of establish, like, I'm JC Jane, this is Lainey Reed, and this is Fallon Henley, and this is why we're here. So to get that promo time, and send them back out there, I thought was important. But yeah, I'm glad. Finally see them on the main roster. It's about time. So Jacob Fatu, he was warming up in the back when Jimmy and Jay approached. And Jimmy said they're going to have his back tonight to counter the MFTs. And Jacob was very clear with them. He said, I don't need your help. And off he went for the main event. But first, we have to go elsewhere in the back, where Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, they were in the trainer's room. They had ice packs. Rhea Ripley showed up. She was looking all beat up, and Charlotte was staring at her. She looked at Charlotte and said, do we have a problem? So Alexa said, yeah, fatal influence. She's trying to calm things down. Charlotte said, I'll take care of JC by myself next week, unlike Rhea. And she walked off. And then Alexa told Rhea, don't worry, that's just how she is. So right out of the gate, they're putting JC Jane in the ring with some heavy hitters on this show. Rhea Ripley tonight, Charlotte Flair next week. It's a good sign for JC. Then we got the Ricky Saints teaser video and the announcement that he will be making his SmackDown debut next Friday. They're going to be in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So he will be making his Blue Brand debut. I'm sorry I won't be here for it. I'm going to be in Los Angeles next week. I won't be in Tulsa. I'll be in LA for House of Glory, so I will not be here for SmackDown. But Solo Sikoa will always be here for you. He was in the main event tonight. He was taking on Jacob Fatu. So the MFTs, they attacked on the outside with the referee distracted. The Usos all of a sudden walked out on stage and they stayed there. They were going to observe from a distance, even though Fatu warned them, I don't need you, don't come out here. So Solo was in control heading into the final commercial break. Solo, coming out of the break, he delivered an overhead release German suplex, and Jacob took this bump where he just landed flat on his stomach, and the Usos were still watching on from the stage. JC Mateo again distracted the referee, which allowed Solo to get a roll-up for a near fall. This was basically a handicap match here. So Fatu dove through the ropes. He wiped all three members of the MFTs out. Back inside, there was a Uranagi by Solo, and then he heads up top. Big splash connects. Fatu, though, gets the shoulder up at the last second. So he goes for the Samoan spike, and the Samoan spike misses. Pop-up Samoan drop by Fatu puts him down. He sets him in position for the mighty moonsault, and Fatu gets the 3 count. But then the MFTs pounce when the match is over. And the Usos, they're not lifting a finger to help. They're watching this all play out, and the Usos are still standing over there on stage. But Tonga Loa, he puts a chair in the ring. I think he put multiple chairs in the ring. And something happened here. I forgot. I think what? So Tonga Loa, something happened with the chair here. I think Tonga Loa maybe hit himself with it. I don't know. It was something. I was paying more attention to what happened after this. But I think something happened here with Tonga Loa that was kind of funny. But puts the chair in the ring. Now the Usos are making their way down to ringside. They're in no great rush, but they're making their way down to the ring. But before they can actually get into the ring, they get up on the apron. But Fatu, he is now taking possession of one of the chairs. And he is wearing out the MFTs with this chair. He's making his own comeback. He doesn't need them. So he puts a chair around JC Mateo's neck in the corner, puts another chair around Tama Tonga's neck in the corner, and he doles out running hip attacks on both men. Suicide dive takes out Tonga Loa. And Jacob strips the lid off of the announce desk, and he places Tonga Loa on top of the announce desk. The idea is that Jacob Fatu is going to climb up on the timekeeper's barricade, and he's going to do a splash off the barricade through the table. But Tonga Loa, he fell. He rolled off the table and fell on the floor. Poor Tonga Loa. So Jacob had to climb back down and grab him and put him back on the table. And then he climbed up on the barricade, and then he hit a splash through the table. It wouldn't be a segment here without a Tonga Loa moment. I hope this man never gets released. How could it be the comic value that you get out of this man? I hope he is employed there forever. I hope he signs a 25-year contract, a no-cut clause in his contract. It's just there forever, right on into the Hall of Fame induction. That's my hope. So with the Usos on the apron, Jacob gets back in the ring, and he's looking at them, and he tells them, tell Roman he'll see their asses on Monday Night Raw. And that is how the show went off the air. The way the MFTs are booked on these shows, outside of Solo Sikoa, it wouldn't shock me at all if they were on the bubble too. I'd be a little worried if I were the likes of the MFTs on this show. The match, really like every other match on this show, like every other match on these shows, was perfectly solid. Nothing more, nothing less. At least we got a clean winner, right? There was no DQ bullshit finish here at the end. Jacob got a win, as he should, if he's going to be wrestling Roman Reigns, right? Shouldn't be losing to Solo Sikoa. Again, I don't know if Jacob is going to Raw full-time or if it's just a temporary thing until they do the match at Backlash and then he reverts back to SmackDown. They haven't really articulated that one way or the other, because I don't think he's beating Roman. So, we'll find out in short order exactly where he's going to land. It just, everything is a mess right now. Guys bouncing back and forth, and it's like, it doesn't even feel like any of this matters. You know what I mean? Like, people just show up wherever they want to, whenever they want to. The general managers have no issue with it. They don't do a draft anymore, which is good, because I don't want to see one. But the fact that they don't bother doing one anymore probably tells you everything you need to know about the sanctity of this brand split. I don't think there is one anymore. Like, officially. There really is none. Right? They try to keep a lot of the people on these rosters segregated, where they really do only appear on one show or the other. But there's just this unspoken thing where it's like, okay, yeah, you're kind of on Raw, you're kind of on SmackDown, but like, honestly, it don't matter. People can cross borders and go back and forth, right? There's no real rhyme or reason to it. The Usos have family on this show, so they're just going to show up on SmackDown one week. We have people that are on SmackDown who will go to Raw and challenge for a Raw title. We have people on Raw that will go to SmackDown and challenge for a SmackDown title from time to time. It makes no sense. So everything just feels like a mess right now. This was not a great show by any means, but it had its moments. The call-ups, honestly, that's the best part right now, because this show could use them. Something has to change. I said earlier, like, hit the reset button. They kind of are. We have Roman and Rhea as champions again. I know that sounds like old hat, but like, Rhea hasn't been a singles champion in a while. Roman, who is going to be around at least through the summer, he has not been champion for a while, so they went back to them. Tiffany Stratton, who also was a world champion, but has not really done anything in 6 months, it feels like. And so she's now the United States champion. And now we have, the new NXT faces that are being called up. So it feels like we're in the middle of a little bit of a reset on these shows, which is good. I just hope it's a case where they help the show and not a case where the show actually brings them down, which would be very possible, because SmackDown is a terrible show. SmackDown is an awful television show. And I hope that changes. I'm not talking about one great SmackDown and then 3 terrible ones. It's going to take a Herculean effort with these people who write these shows to get SmackDown to a place where we can kind of consistently look at it every week and not be like, oh God, what are they going to do this week? Like, I want them to get to a place where it's like, okay, SmackDown's really gotten its act together in the last like 6 weeks. And so I don't worry as much about it anymore, right? We're not there right now. But that's my hope. And what I don't want are people to be called up who were doing stuff in NXT and they come to SmackDown and now it kind of like drags them down into the abyss and it actually hurts them more than it helps them. I want them to enhance the show and bring the show up. That's my hope for Fatal Influence. That's my hope for Royce Keys. That's my hope for Ricky Saints, is that they can really help elevate this show to a level that it has not been at for a very long time. I think that's the best anybody can hope for. But not a great day for WWE, considering all the people who unfortunately lost their jobs today. Take a look at your super chats. There you go. That's it. A new cast of characters. Some new stories. No more Lantern. Joseph Stewart, I hope you're having a great Friday night. Happy Friday to you, brother. I did not see the Michael Jackson movie. He says he saw it and it was really good. I'm seeing mixed reviews on it. I have no plans on seeing it. I have no interest in seeing it. I love Michael's music. I think he's one of the greatest artists of all time. I just have no interest in seeing the movie. But I believe there's a second one, right? It's like 2 parts. I think there's a second one coming out. You can't fit everything in one movie and give it ample time to really explore every angle of his life, I wouldn't think. He says, what are your thoughts on the recent comments by Ric Flair? I'll have a lot more to say about that on Sunday on the Sound Off. Flair was on Ariel Helwani's show on Wednesday. I was there. I actually had the chance to finally meet with Ariel face to face. I've been doing the show, since February, but I met him and the team and everything. It just so happened I came in that day and got the grand tour, and I sat in the control room. I had no idea, by the way, until I got there that Ric Flair was on the show that day. I said, oh, okay. And so I sat in the control room and I got to watch the entire interview along with everybody else. It was a very interesting experience. But yeah, we'll talk about that on Sunday. And he says, happy birthday to Barbara Streisand. Have you seen the first look of the Netflix live-action Scooby-Doo? No, I have not. Did you see the photo of Jack Nicholson online celebrating his 89th birthday? I did not, but happy birthday to Jack. I mentioned that on the Dynamite stream the other night. Somebody did that. It was his birthday. How would you have booked a Sting and Goldberg feud in WCW? I would have booked it a lot better than WCW would have. I think they had a TV match once, right? I think they did wrestle once. But as far as how I would book it, they would both have to be baby faces. I can't see turning either one of them heel. I just book it, for the world championship, man. It's all about the world title. Not unlike the way they did Goldberg and DDP. Very similar. Do you remember when Kurt Hennig feuded with Master P in WCW? Yes, that was during his rap is crap phase. I do remember that. Do you think Sting will ever come back to WWE? No. Never. Never gonna happen. He's under contract with AEW still. Do you remember the WCW Nitro commercial that had Keith David narrating and DDP saying that this is where the big boys play? Keith David narrated a WCW commercial? I don't remember that, but I do remember the Sprite commercial where Sting beats up the little kid. I did enjoy that. He says, I hope you go see the Michael Jackson movie this weekend and have a great weekend, Solomon. I will be working on Sound Off stuff and Sound Off notes all weekend, so I will not be seeing it. However, I will be seeing the Mortal Kombat movie in a few weeks. I'm looking forward to that. And then we got the back rooms coming at the end of May. Broly says, call up women to help with your lack of depth division, only to fire the ones you already have, therefore going back to how we began. Well, that is true. Zelina Vega, Alba Fire. What was it, just those two? I don't have the list in front of me. Yeah, they got rid of a few women, but let's be honest here. I mean, they weren't doing anything with them, so it doesn't really change things. And they still have there, I did it again. Meechin, B-Fab, Candice LeRae, Kiana James, Giulia, Tiffany, Charlotte, Alexa, Nia, Lash, Paige, the Bellas. They have the women there now. Fatal Influence, Blake Monroe. The key is what you do with them. What are you going to do with them? What are the stories that you're coming up with for them? What are the matches? What are the feuds? I don't trust these people. That's the problem. Death Size, Jeff Hardy's release in 2021 still boggles my mind. There's a lot of things that Jeff's done in his career that boggle the mind. Dry chicken without flavor. I bet people within AEW will heavily encourage Tony Khan to sign Kairi Sane once the non-compete clause expires. Well, why wouldn't they? I'm sure they will. Death Scythe says, wherever Kairi goes, she will be safe from Asuka. Yes, no more worrying about Asuka. She's free. Bossmo Jackson, it's official. JC Jane and company is on SmackDown. And WWE should fire he says Death Rebel. What's Death Rebel? That's a different band I've never heard of. Dry Chicken says WWE is cutting ties with Def Rebel, but wait, that's an alternate 2026. CMJ World, how long do you think it'll be before we get ads and promos? Like, after I kick your ass tonight, I'm gonna go get the new Papa John's Ultimate Stuffed Crust Pepperoni Pizza. You know, you laugh, you put LOL at the end of that, but I don't think we're too far off from that. Don't you go giving TKO any ideas now. You know, we see those Snickers commercials. At some point, there's going to be someone who just loses their shit in a promo, and like their partner is going to be like, you're not yourself. Here, have a Snickers. Right in the middle of the promo. You don't think that they wouldn't sell ad inventory like that if they knew they could? Broly, Fatal Influence already more over than whatever the hell they were doing with Lash and Nia for 6 months. Lainey was in NXT for only 10 months. Well, that's why I haven't seen too much of her work. Venom Kitetsu with a $10 super chat just took 60 G's of shrooms. That's how you know it's a Friday night. That's his way of preparing for SmackDown. So the wrestling industry is a frustrating mess. Post-Mania cuts are expected, but some are just nonsense. Looking forward to the sound of. Been a wild week with just Flair alone. Thank you, Venom Kitetsu. It has been a very newsworthy week. Nico Samuel, thank you for the 5. And we've got another 5 here from, Mystic J. Hijacking with another 5. Thank you, Mystic J. Well, this person is like Prince. There's no name. It's just a dash. Says, feels like a waste of time to watch weekly shows when so many storylines are dropped or retconned or forgotten. F for Kairi's face turn against Asuka. Yeah, that's a great point. And I kind of made a similar point at the beginning of the stream when I said, why should we invest in some of these stories and characters? But I talked about now look, I'm glad they retconned the Pat McAfee stuff. But that's another example where they were telling this story and it was so fucking awful that they decided the best course of action. I mean, they had no choice once Pat said, I'm done with this. So they basically retconned it, and it's going to be like it never even happened. And the Asuka Kairi stuff, and it's going to be like that never even happened. And you could find other examples of this. But in this case, it was so unnecessary. It was totally unnecessary. And they did it anyway. Nico with a 20. Hey, Solo, I missed SmackDown. Did I miss anything? I was in downtown Orlando watching the Chameleons. Would watch them 1,000 times over Morrissey. Looking forward to the Sound Off, episode 960 and Uncrowned. Thanks as always. Thank you, Nico. I got you covered this upcoming week. You were watching the Chameleons. Also, he says, what is the airport test? So the airport test, it's very simple. The idea is that if you see this person, whoever this person may be, walking through the airport, do they catch your eye? Because if not, you fail the airport test. But let's say you're walking through the airport and you're just dressed in a very, I don't know, outlandish way, or you're 7 feet tall, or you're all muscled up and chiseled. You're like something out of a comic book, whatever the case may be. If fucking Omos is walking through the airport, Omos is going to pass that airport test every single time, right? Because all the eyes are going to be on him. That's the airport test. You know, Sami Zayn walking through the airport, other than the people who would know him from TV. If Sami Zayn, someone who looked like Sami Zayn, was walking through the airport, would people be like staring at him and like, would their eyes be shifting over like, ooh, who's that guy? Like, no. No one's going to pay any attention. Sami Zayn would fail the airport test. Daniel Bryan would fail the airport test. That's what the airport test is. William Lopez, the first time Alistair was released, he said not to blame Vince McMahon. I wonder if this time he'll say, don't blame Nick Khan. Yeah, not the first time that Alistair has departed WWE. What he's going to do now, I don't know. San Juan Wolf with a 1999. If Sammy isn't already a heel, I've got a good feeling they're going to turn him real soon, and I'm here for it. Much love from Florida. Oh, they're in the middle of doing it for sure. We're seeing it happen right before our eyes. TGN, TKO have lost the plot. Release Kyrie in the middle of a storyline. Also, with Black, they decided, nah, Pat McAfee, brother, and then fire him. What a joke. Yeah, imagine. I mean, if that report is to be believed, you know, going from potentially being involved in a WrestleMania match and program with Randy Orton to losing your job a week later after WrestleMania. It's something, isn't it? It's really something. Hulkling93, hey Solo, notice Tongaloa almost smacking himself, that's what it was. He almost smacked himself with the chair when he was getting into the ring. Also, like a group of moose are called moose, a group of deer are called deer. I mean, deer sounds fine, but like, again, just when you say it out loud and you call a group of moose, it just doesn't sound right to me. That needs to be changed. Someone needs to get in touch with Oxford and get that changed. Aaron, SmackDown has been bad, so their brilliant solution is to build the entire show around the MFTs. Sounds like a great idea. Rick Gonzalez, my Rockies beat your Mets, Solo. Yikes. Yeah, I heard. They're back to their losing ways. When you lose to the Rockies, I mean, I just don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. Where do you go from there? Misfit Wrestling Podcast. Today marks 1 year since my mom passed away. It's been very tough for me and my family, but your streams always put a smile on my face and put me in a good mood. Please continue to do so, Solo. Well, I'm very sorry to hear about your mom. And as long as I can bring you some level of comfort for a few hours each night, each week, then I will continue to do that. It's the least I can do. Thank you, brother. Leo, I hate seeing people get released. My heart goes out to the people who have lost their jobs today. I was also a bit worried for Kiana. I'm glad to see that she seems to be safe. Aaron says, buy or sell Kane and Undertaker's 2000 returns. Oh, man. They were both great, but I got to go Undertaker. That one was just mass chaos at the end of that Iron Man match. Leo says, like that they are teasing a breakup between Kiana and Giulia. I just hope they commit to it. They also need more baby faces on the women's side. The Uthman. WWE's reason for letting Kyrie go. In Johnny Ace's voice. Budget cuts. There's budget cuts, kid. Death Scythe. Imagine if they cut Elizabeth before WrestleMania 5. Yeah. Basically. No, imagine if they cut Elizabeth before WrestleMania 8. That whole storyline was revolved around her. They were threatening to drop a giant centerfold banner of her in a compromising position if Flair won the match. And then imagine a week before, Elizabeth has been released by WWE. We got Mr. Rod. Wyatt 6 is gone, unfortunately, and the aura died. They basically failed Bray Wyatt. Sad. I don't really look at it like that necessarily. I look at it like this. Bo had the opportunity to come back and pay tribute to his brother, and he did that. I'm sure he would have wanted to continue the vision and just kind of see it through until the end, but it's not like he didn't get to do some cool stuff and honor his brother. So I don't look at it as a total lost cause. He paid tribute to Bray. He brought those characters back to life. They won the tag team titles. So, you can't... And again, their debut is very memorable. So I don't think you could say it was a total loss. It just fizzled out. And they didn't really know what to do with them because it's a gimmick that had a ceiling. And it just... There's only so much you're going to be able to do unless you evolve it. And you evolve those characters into something beyond just spooky shit where, you're having them do supernatural type stuff or freaky type stuff. And they just never evolved it. They just kept doing the same shit with them over and over and over again, or maybe they wanted to and they didn't allow them to. I don't know what the thought process was there. I don't know if ideas were being pitched that were ignored or rejected. Now that they're all released, once their non-competes are up, I'm sure some of them might hit the interview circuit and maybe we'll get some answers to those questions. But I wouldn't say they failed Bray. I wouldn't say that. Aaron... Actually, to be honest with you, Bray, if you think about it, Bray was released by WWE also. So they were kind of following in his footsteps in that way, in terms of how he got treated by the company. Aaron says Nikita Lyons has been around since 2021. Hasn't improved much and got demoted from developmental NXT to Evolve. She must have the Def Rebel leverage. Yeah, she's got, I don't know, man. She knows maybe where a couple of bodies are buried. Jeremy Rose, these people lost their jobs because the company that flaunts record profits and gate records spend their money on old divas like the Bellas and Paige and the Jelly Rolls and McAfees of the world. They think those people are going to draw them money. And they're convinced that these are the people that we need to be seeing on these shows. Abyssal Zones. Going into WrestleMania 41, I recall you expected more from Aleister Black than Rusev. I was about to ask who had the better year. I guess we have our answer. Yeah, and it's not like Rusev has done a whole lot either. At least he got on the WrestleMania card. Can't say the same for Aleister Black. Lost the Sauce Boss with $9.99. Kairi will be dropping Solomonster through a table with an elbow drop in HOG by the end of the year. It's not a prediction, it's a spoiler. You want me to take an insane elbow through a table? I don't know if I'd be willing to do that. That sounds very dangerous. Jeremy Rose says, we got heel Sammy and heel Bloodline and a lazy creative team. Use your imagination and see the vision. I'd prefer to see Crazy J versus Jacob instead of Jacob wasting his shot at Roman, since we all know he is losing. Well, he's definitely not winning the championship. Jeremy, thank you. Alexander, is wild. If Jasmine Nix was patient, she would have been on the show tonight with JC Jane. I think she complained about the money not being enough. Yeah, I think she said it was like $75,000 or something. And I mean, look, good for her. If she felt like it wasn't enough, stand your ground. Sometimes you just have to be willing to not take what they're going to give you. If you feel like you're being undervalued, or you feel like, man, I need to be making more than that, then say, look, that's not good enough for me. Sorry. Yeah, hey, I mean, respect to her for that. Aaron says, I think it would be good to send Tiffany to Raw when she drops the US title. Her and Blake are very similar, and she's been on SmackDown since her call-up. It's like having two Barbie doll characters on the same show. I wouldn't be shocked if they end up putting them in a fucking tag team together at some point. Start coming out in matching outfits. I volunteer as a tribute for you, Solo, to take the insane elbow. I'm sure a lot of people would be volunteering their services for that spot. Alexander with the 15. Thank you, Alexander. We need to keep this super chat alive. On a side note, and I posted it in the chat earlier, the common denominator with the main roster releases, all of them were SmackDown talent. SmackDown mid-card got nuked. You know, Black, Vega, Alba. Well, that's not true. Kairi was on Raw. Kairi was not a SmackDown star, so that's not entirely true. Apollo Crews was, though. Santos Escobar really was not a WWE main roster talent anymore. They had moved him over to AAA. The rest of them, I think you are correct, though. The rest of them, I believe, outside of the NXT ones, the rest of them, I believe, were SmackDown. Nico Samuel. Get Wild E. Coyote to blow... He says Wild E. Coyote. I would love it if that was his name. It's Wild E. Coyote to blow up SmackDown. Just saying. Well, the problem is if you get the Coyote to blow up SmackDown, it won't work. He'll just blow himself up. That's the whole point of being Wild E. Coyote. It's not going to work. He'll try to blow up SmackDown, and it'll end up blowing up in his face. That's the whole point of the character. Near says falafel on me, Solo. Not really a falafel guy. I appreciate the offer, though. Jeremy Rose, could Punk Cody SummerSlam happen, then rematch at WrestleMania? Could it happen? Sure. There have been times where we've gotten matches at SummerSlam, and then they build the story all the way through WrestleMania. We got the rematch there. Chicago for MBK. I asked earlier this week about potential releases. Seeing some of the names today genuinely floored me. Triple H needs to follow. Time to rebuild. Chris O'Neill, big name that you can see getting released. I say Bayley. I don't know when Bayley's contract is up. If it's later this year or next year. There's been a lot of rumors about her. I think it's more realistic that when her contract is up, she chooses to leave. I think if she wanted to go to AEW, she would be welcomed with open arms, and she's got friends there, and she has a whole plethora of new talent there to work with. If she just was looking for like a refresh, maybe she's not. She may be content to stay where she is, and then she's doing these occasional seminars, for other women's wrestlers, and maybe she's just content to do that. But I think it's more likely that if anything, she just opts to leave when her contract is up. She's been there a long time. Broly says 13 people have been called up since January. Got a feel for CW and HBK, and I think Giulia needs to turn face. They only got 5 faces and 11 heels on SmackDown. Yes, they definitely do need more faces. Now, are you counting... I assume you're counting some of the women that are in tag teams, like Charlotte and Alexa. And Mystic J. It sucks to think that all the released wrestlers Triple H brought back when he took over creative have all been released once again. That is actually... It's actually a good point. Right? You had Black. You had... well, you had Cross. You had Dakota Kai, right? Yeah, Kyrie. There were a bunch of people. Alex's brother Solo. If you are evil, then are you canceling your WWE contract and going back to New Japan after today's releases? I mean, what is his potential? Now, why would he do that? He left New Japan for a reason, because he knows he can make more money over here. What is his potential? He's not going to be a main event player in this company, but I don't even know if he's going to NXT first or not. What is his potential? I think his potential is similar to what you see with JC Mateo in the MFTs. That's what I think his potential is. We got chicken sticks and lipo. What went wrong with Cross in WWE? Love your show. He probably didn't do himself any favors with that post-WrestleMania promo last year, which was fucking awesome. But it sounds like it might have ruffled some feathers in a way that he didn't intend, because people got all up in their feelings. And so I don't think that helped his case. I also don't think that people getting behind him and starting to chant for him necessarily was something the company was expecting or hoping for. And sometimes they don't like that. You know, sometimes they'll embrace it if they see the crowd is really rallying behind somebody. But I think only if they see that person as really having true potential, like, oh, okay, that's a person that we want to get behind or would have gotten behind. And now the fans are dictating that they want us to get behind this person. And I kind of feel like if you don't fall into that category and you're not part of the plan, they don't like that very much. They kind of resent you for it. There may have been a little bit of that going on. Retro KOH, buy or sell on evil video game doctors. Dr. Eggman from Sonic or Dr. Wily from Mega Man. I gotta go Dr. Eggman. And Senpai, thank you for the membership. Remember, the wheel tonight dictated 530 likes was the goal. We are currently sitting at 699. We're one away from 700, so you guys smashed the goal. Very cool to see. We did well on the bonus goal. We fell 3 short so far, 7 out of 10 on that. But we got one round to be the booker at least coming your way. Let's get to that right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
It's Dr. Robotnik. Dr. Robotnik. I mean, this guy here. Talking Dr. Robotnik right here. Look at this guy. Is that who you're talking about? Love me some Dr. Robotnik. All right, here we go. Tag team Be the Booker. We're going to kick off with RK Bro. Vince Russo's favorite team. Randy Orton and Matt Riddle. They are going to be stepping into the ring with Bullet Club Gold, Jay White, and Juice Robinson. I miss Jay White. When is Jay White going to be back? He's been gone for a very long time. You imagine if RK Bro was managed by Vince Russo and he cut all their promos for them? That would be awful. All right, women's Be the Booker. Oh, man. Of all the nights, we land on Queen Zelina. It's like Be the Booker knows sometimes. It's like it has a sixth sense for these things. Choose 4 women. Oh, and then we get Nikki Cross in this one. Look at that. Be the Booker is just. This is terrible. This is very sad. We go from Zelina in one image to Nikki Cross in another image. Choose 4 women and book a tag team match. All right, so we're going to start over then. You have to start fresh now. 4 women. And we're going to book a women's tag team match. All right, so our first participant is Ruby Riott. Or Ruby Soho. I guess we'll call her Ruby Soho since that was an AEW image. Ruby Soho and her tag team partner, Giulia. Now this right here, this is Stardom Giulia right here. This is Giulia. Ruby and Giulia. Their opponents, Rhea Ripley and Rhea Ripley's tag team partner is Zoe Stark. It's a fine tag team match, but man, Be the Booker, what are you doing? What are you doing tonight? We went from Zelina to Nikki Cross to Zoe Stark. You know what I think? I think this is Be the Booker's way of paying tribute. It's got to be. This is Be the Booker's way of paying tribute. Because that's just wild. That's just cruel. Either that or Be the Booker is like the biggest troll. I don't know, one or the other. But I don't blame me. I have no control over it. I create it, but then it has a mind of its own. All right, our main event. All right, let's not be doing Aleister Black in this main event, please, or I don't think Santos is in here. We have the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes with the rare red polka dots, not yellow. We have red polka dots here. And Dusty's opponent. Well, we got ourselves a mirror match. Cody Rhodes is in tears somewhere looking at this match. We have Dusty Rhodes taking on Dusty Rhodes. The charisma of this match. Imagine the promos leading up to this match. What a build up to this match. Yes, this is Cody's dream match. He's going to have a front row seat for this one. Dusty couldn't have booked it, but now we just need a Dusty finish. Yes, we need a Dusty finish for this match. Was that a sweep? It was a sweep. I was so wrapped up in this match that I forgot to hit the sound effect for the sweep. Dusty Rhodes against Dusty Rhodes. Honestly, better than most wrestling matches these days. Dusty and Dusty. Who goes over? Yeah, that's the question, though. Who does the JOB in that match?
It's the amazing Gunther. Jerry Lawler loves Gunther the Magnificent. All hail Gunther.
The amazing Gunther, the mighty one himself, joining us. That is Yukio Rules with a $50 bomb. Thank you for all your WrestleMania coverage last week, as I did not get to watch it live, and keep up the great work. Yukio, thank you. That means a lot. Man, $50 bomb. Thank you, brother. I'm glad you enjoyed the coverage. I didn't get much sleep last weekend. I haven't got much sleep this week. Yeah, I flew, whatever it was, 5.5 hours to Vegas. Unfortunately, I am not someone who can really sleep on flights. I would love to. I can never seem to do it. And now I have a 6-hour flight to and from LA coming up next week. And I would love to sleep through most of it. And I know I'm not going to be able to. So I'll sleep when I'm dead. Thank you, Yukio. And EJ Slemp, rank these matchups from best to worst. Only 2 away. Look at that on that bonus skull, by the way. 8 out of 10. Rank these matchups from best to worst. HBK versus Misawa. Undertaker versus Kobashi. Brett versus Kawada. Owen versus Taue. Wow. Those all sound like great matches. So now I have to rank them. Undertaker and Kobashi. Are we talking like mid-2000s, like MMA Undertaker who was actually wrestling? Or are we talking Gray Glove 1992 Undertaker? Which Undertaker are we talking about here? Man, I mean, it's how do I vote against HBK and Misawa? That's like, I mean, you talk about dream matches there. Yeah, I think I would I would rank HBK Misawa, and then, you know, Brett and Kawada is an interesting one because Brett had a match with Tiger Mask in 1990. So Brett hadn't really reached his final form yet in 1990, but that match was not that good. And I don't know if it was just like if you did that match 5 years later, it may be a banger, or just Brett not working well with some of the Japanese wrestlers. I don't know. Because I would put Brett and Kawada second, but I don't know. I don't know how that match would go. Yeah, Bret Hart hated working with Misawa. All right, yeah, that's a good point. Kawada, he says Kawada is the greatest seller of all time. So Brett versus Kawada. I'll go HBK Misawa, and then Brett Kawada, and then Owen and Taue, and then Undertaker and Kobashi last. I hate to put Kobashi last, but in this case, I feel like I have to. What a joint card that would have been, though. I think Kobashi would be taking a last ride from The Undertaker. Brett would leave if he had to face Kawada. Why? Why would he leave? Sting and Muta was not bad. I think it was 91. No, it was 89, and it was better than not that bad. It was fucking great. Sting and Muta was awesome. I think they've posted up some of that stuff on the WCW channel on YouTube. If you are either not familiar with it or you haven't seen it in many years, you can find it on there. Muta in 89 was great. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out with me on a very newsworthy Friday night. Unfortunately, a very newsworthy Friday night. I would imagine there would be more information that will be coming out in the days ahead as far as these releases and what led to some of them, or if there are additional ones, because they may not be done yet. And so I'll have all that information for you on the Sound Off this Sunday. There's a lot of stuff to get into on the Sound Off this Sunday. I have one episode left, the final episode of the Hulk Hogan docuseries on Netflix. So if I'm able to finish that tomorrow, I will give you my full thoughts on that. The Flair stuff. I mean, there's a ton of stuff I want to get into. So we will talk about all that. Episode 960. That will be on Sunday. And as far as the week coming up, Raw post show Monday night. We have the Uncrowned Wrestling show on Tuesday. Tuesday Night Titans that night. And then Dynamite on Wednesday. There will not be a SmackDown review next Friday because I will be, at that time, I will be doing commentary. I will be doing play-by-play for the House of Glory show. Somebody in the chat earlier asked me if there's tickets available. I believe they should still be. I know we were very close to a sellout. When I look at the map, it's weird. Like, I looked at the map earlier, and it doesn't show any, like, on the map available seats, but, like, you can choose on the bottom from either some balcony or some general admissions. So, yes, there are still some tickets available if you want to go to the show. If you want to say hello, I'll be there. But yes, that's where I will be. It's a quick thing too. I'm flying into LA on Friday, doing the show, and then flying back to New York on Saturday morning. So, and then I got to get home because I got a Sound Off to do next Sunday. Wish me luck. I do it all for you. I do it all for you. Anyway, be well, stay safe, have yourselves a great weekend, and keep an eye out. Sunday afternoon, episode 960 of the Sound Off. And back here on the streams on Monday night. Eminem, getting one in at the buzzer here. Sad question, but I have to ask, who will get released next? Rusev or Giulia? I hate answering questions like that because I hope neither one of them gets released. But after the events of tonight, I mean, I think Giulia is in a terrible position right now. Them taking the title off of her, to me, is a very bad sign. But hopefully neither one of them. Because I don't think either one of them wants to lose their job. All right, I'll see you guys back here next time. Until then. Behind the Scene says, when is the WWE draft? Never. Never. The draft is dead. There was no draft last year, and hopefully there will not be a draft this year. But there is an NFL draft. If you want to go and enjoy a draft, then have at it. That one is happening as we speak. I'll see you guys on Monday night. Oh my goodness. I had my finger on the button and I look up and I hear somebody in the chat go, "Be the booker." I go, "You sons of bitches, look at this." You talk about last minute. Oh my God. Alex with a $10 super chat says, "Be the booker." And then Eminem showing off. Coming in with a $9.99, which means we have hit the bonus goal of 10 out of 10. Yeah, this is like one of those Marvel like post-credit scenes. Well, Look at that. I was so ill prepared that all the sounds were still playing. That's how unprepared I was to come back to this screen. I thought we were done for the night. Yeah, that's like that R-Truth kick out in the tag team title match tonight where Damian Priest was late. That's how close that near fall was. even the soundboards celebrated. All right, well, when we do these bonus rounds, we do stipulations. So we're going to start there. And, well, you're very appropriate that we should land on loser leaves town match. We have a loser leaves town stipulation here for our first match. And we are actually going to book a women's loser leaves town match. So the loser is fired. They are released. They are gone. If we land on them. Mercedes Moné will be in a loser leaves town match. With Nikki Bella. What are we thinking here? Are we thinking Bell? Are we thinking Buzz? And plus, in this match, I think Mercedes gets the win, which would mean that Nikki Bella would have to leave the territory. Nikki Bella would be gone at the end of this match. Yeah, look at everybody in the chat. Bye bye. Look at it. Bye bye, Nikki. Everybody in the chat says bye bye, Nikki. You know, she's out injured right now. You can't say that. She's rehabbing from an ankle injury. All right, our second match is going to be a blindfold match. And it's going to be a blindfold tag team match. I don't think we've ever had a blindfold tag team match before. We have the Godwins, Henry and Phineas. Going to be wearing blindfolds in this match. Against the Acclaimed. And I do like the Acclaim, but I don't like this match. Mars says blindfold match. Is that a real thing? Did you not see the image? That was a blindfold match. There have actually been multiple blindfold. I think Triple H was in a blindfold match once on TV. I think. I vaguely remember him being in one. Well, they can't all be winners. We had a sweep in the first one. We will not have a clean sweep here. Streak is over, yes. Full Metal Mayhem. Remind me again, like how many people are typically in a Full Metal Mayhem match? Or there's no set number, right? We could have two people in a Full Metal Mayhem match. I think that's what we're going to do. Full Metal Mayhem in our main event. Save the best stipulation for last. Dude Love. Oh, that's right up his alley. A Mick Foley Full Metal Mayhem match. This is right in his wheelhouse. Against Eddie Guerrero. Dude Love and Eddie Guerrero. You know what? Fuck it. We're going to add one more, too. Since you guys said there's no set number, I could add as many people as I want. We have Dude Love. We have Eddie Guerrero. Oh, my goodness. And we have Oba Femi. I know who's winning this match. Oba Femi in there with Eddie Guerrero. That could be fun. Foley will take bumps, man, for Oba. He'll put Oba over like $1 million. Just like he did everybody else. That'd be a great match. Sweet. Thunder Force 2000. If Johnny Gargano gets released, everyone who was on NXT TakeOver New Orleans is no longer with WWE. That's sad. That is sad. The charisma in that match is off the charts. That'd be a great match. Foley, Oba, and Eddie. That's why we do what we do. We try to book the best matches, man, and just imagine in our minds, what would that match look like? It's a generational match, yes. It is multiple generations in that match. All right. Good shit. We ended up hitting the goal. I like it. Keep bringing the heat. We'll do it again Monday night. I'll see you guys on Sunday for the sound off. Take care.